Today, and there's some contact driven deep right. Richard plays it over his head. Hits off the base of the wall. 2 will score. There at second and third. And the Cardinals have busted it open. It's 5-1.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, that's what it sounded like yesterday as the St. Louis Cardinals via Valley Sports Midwest come away with a victory. They win 2 out of 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, guys. Everybody was doom and gloom yesterday. I don't know why. This team's fine. Everything's fine. 11-14, 3.5 games back of the NL wild card right now. Alex, things are looking up.
I think we're still outscoring the series, but
You do remember how that game, like, the Cardinals got the lead, right?
They won, didn't they?
Hey, man.
Don't tell me about the labor. Show me the baby, my friend.
I'm all about the
That's
labor.
all I ask.
We all know. You and I have been in those labor rooms. We're all about the labor.
You don't
I'll
want to
take your
hear
word
about
for
our
it.
3-day experience in the hospital.
Mine was late. I told Katie, next time you have
That's
a
what
kid,
every
try and have
Cardinal-
it in the afternoon.
that's what every Cardinal
Mine
game
was at
feels like, though, huh?
12:34. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Every Cardinals
Best
game
way to
feels like a
remember it.
3-day labor.
I was going to say, I
There
feel
you
like
go.
I'm going through labor when this team plays.
Or when you're talking to me. Either way. The
Yeah.
Cardinals
No,
are
that's
11-14 on the season. They are in their off day, so it allows us some time to reset. We will do so with Eno Sarris of The Athletic coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. Alex, people are going to yell at me, and that's fine. Our text line is 314-399-9646. I'm going to try to be positive Pete today, okay?
I would have never expected that today.
The Cardinals are 2-1 against San Diego this year. Their one loss against the Padres was a 3-2 loss. They lost by 1 run. It's a 50-50 proposition there. They went 1-2 against Philly. However, the 2 losses that they had in that series, I'm not trying to shine a turd, I promise, but I think context is important in a situation like this. Their losses came 5-3 in extra innings, so essentially a 50-50 proposition, and a 4-3 loss as well, 50-50 game. They went 3-3 against Arizona. Now, losses here are a little tougher to explain. 4-2, 5-0, and 14-1.
Oh, that was a good one. I'll always remember that one.
Yeah, that was the worst loss of the season. There's no shining up that turd. What can we learn from this, Alex? Because I was told that these are the teams that you got to compare against. These are the teams that are probably going to be in that wild card contention. Nobody's comparing this year, shouldn't at least, the Cardinals to the Dodgers. Nobody's trying to compare this team to the Braves. You shouldn't, at least. Again, those teams are in a different criteria than what we're talking about in St. Louis right now. So when I watch this team go head-to-head against the other teams that we're trying to compete against here in St. Louis, it sure looks like they're equal to those teams right now. So what am I supposed to make of this, Alex?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Don't take anything from this, or at least I won't. T-Bone says it. I think he should make it into a T-shirt or at least a bumper sticker on his forehead.
Just Newton and Bush.
Well, that's a good one that we all came up with. No, weird-ish happens in the first month of the season. And it's hard for me, just like we do with the pitchers, to sit there and send out rash judgments about it. It's hard for me to look at what they've done against the wild card teams and say, okay, well, you're on the same level as these teams. Because I look at it, and I do look at the Cardinals have underperformed up to expectations, but the Phillies are not this team. I still think the Phillies are a dominant force that will get back there. Hence, what did they go on, an 8-game win streak?
Can we talk about the competition that they went up against, or no? We only do that.
You couldn't win 3 in a row versus the Athletics, though. So
Touche. You know what? Actually, good point. Go ahead.
Take that.
Never mind.
Sit down.
You, sir, had pocket aces. I had 2-7 offsuit. I apologize. You win.
Shouldn't have lifted my sunglasses up there. No, I think Arizona, although you have won the series against them, I still think Arizona is better than what they have shown in those matchups. San Diego's probably the one I look at and I say, okay, you're on the same level as the San Diego Padres, but I mean, I don't know if San Diego's very good, to be honest with you. So I look at it and say, cool, you've done these against the wild card teams, but then you look at what the wild card teams that you went up against and you had success against did elsewhere. That's where I come back down to earth and I say, okay, this was good. You are on the same level as these teams. And look, the most important thing for the Cardinals is to win series, and you won another one. That's how you become a playoff team. But I still view it as you're lower than Philadelphia. You're lower than the Arizona Diamondbacks in my eyes.
So I agree with the sentiment of weird-ish happens in the first month, and that's why I don't want to sit here today and go, you're with them. But I will say this, if you want to take it as a positive, it's kind of the...
Yeah, I do.
It's kind of what we've talked about. Like, the reason they have to turn this around in the first month isn't because, like, hey, weird-ish happens and it doesn't matter. Like, no, you can sink your season. you didn't show that you don't belong in the category of these teams.
Yeah.
It's not like the Dodgers where I saw you play the Dodgers. Like, yeah, well, you're clearly not in the top tier, as we already knew. And I didn't leave these series thinking that way. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of weird losses to Arizona, but I think Arizona's a solid team. Philadelphia, yeah, you dropped 2 or 3 of them. You also played a game in like a torrential downpour that if you had the regular schedule in previous years, you probably don't play that day. I still think I'm with Alex. Like, I do think Arizona and Philly are a better team. San Diego, I still think the jury is out. In fact, I think they're kind of like you, where they've got better pitching and like no offense. But I think it is a good sign that we're not sitting here today going, yeah, man, they lost every series to these teams, and they clearly don't belong in this second tier of the National League. I think the jury is still out, depending on how they do and if the offense can start hitting. But I don't see them as someone that's fallen off and we can already write them off. No, they're still in that 80 to 85 win mark that I kind of thought they were going to be coming into the season.
Yeah, if they were only beating up on the bad teams, I think we would be talking about, well, the Cardinals are doing well against Miami. They're doing well against Oakland. But look at what happens when they go up against the contenders. You know how I know that? Because we've been saying that for the past 3 years. Every time they go up against somebody that is either their peer or better, they tend to lose those series in recent seasons. The only reason they were propped up, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, and it was a fair critique, I think, is because they played in a terrible National League Central. Well, so far this year, the National League Central has the best record in the NL. Of all the 3 divisions, nobody has a better record right now overall than the Cardinals division. So let's look outside of it and see what they look like, and most of their series have come outside of the division, when they play against peer programs. So far this year, it's looked like they're the Spider-Man meme with all of the other teams that are expected to compete for a National League wildcard. I think that's relevant because for all of these teams, for the Phillies, their offense got off to a sluggish start. Great starting pitching. Offense has been off to a weird start. The Diamondbacks got a lot of injuries in their rotation right now. I think they're going to be better than this long term. I think that offense is going to eventually come around. When you look at the Padres, I just think this is who they are. I think they're a middling team. I don't expect a whole lot. It's a very thin team. At the top, really good, both on the offense and on the pitching side of things, but it's thin.
Man, that sounds like us.
I think the Cardinals are going to be better than what we have seen thus far because I am still a believer, for whatever reason, in this offense. I believe in the back of the baseball card, and I think it will eventually get better. And if it does, I think what we've seen so far this year is you're right in contention with all of these teams. And I think if the offense comes around, I think you're better than most of them. I think you could be basically what the Phillies have been. When your offense comes around, you, I believe, will go through a stretch similar to what the Phillies just did. But it will require you to beat up on some bad teams. And so this is when it needs to happen. Like, you're getting ready to go into a stretch of games where you've got 3 coming up against the White Sox. Boy, if your offense doesn't get going there, it will not get going at any point this year. You're going to have 3 more coming up later on against Detroit. Detroit has had a decent start to the season. I don't believe in it. I think it's nonsense. I think that's going to be a middling team over the course of the season. You should do well there. New York, I don't believe in what we have seen so far this year. I think you should do well in those 2 series that are sandwiching the AL Central matchup. So this is a good stretch for the Cardinals, or it should be a good stretch for the Cardinals. And I think what we've learned from these 3 series against 4 series, I guess, against San Diego, Philly, and Arizona, is that you're gonna be in that like 85 to 90 win threshold along with all of these other contenders in the National League. I did have one other question for you, Alex, because Ollie said something yesterday after the game I want to get your quick thoughts on before we get to Eno Sarris on the other side. Here's what he had to say about the way that the Cardinals are winning games right now.
Yeah, this is the style of game we're going to need in order to get to where we want to get to. And there's going to be games where we hit more doubles and homers and score that way as well because we have the personnel to do that at the moment.
You hope.
That hasn't been the case, so you have to do what we did today. But yeah, this is one of the ways, and probably one of the most common ways I think we'll see more wins.
The Cardinals right now are 29th in Major League Baseball in home runs hit. They have hit 16 home runs through the first 25 games of the season. Only Chicago, the White Sox, have hit fewer so far this year. That's not a team you want to be compared against. The bottom 5 right now, Pittsburgh, Miami, Colorado, St. Louis, Chicago. That ain't great.
Top 5 pick.
But they're finding ways to win with decent starting pitching, great bullpen, solid defense, and finding ways to manufacture runs. Alex, do you think that is something that could benefit them down the road? Because they're finding ways to win this way, it's something that they can lean on whenever they eventually go through another slump offensively. Is this something that you see could be a benefit to them down the road?
I think so, because I view this as it's a it's a weapon to put in your arsenal when things don't look right down the stretch, to where you go back to, all right, well, we're not hitting right now. We're going through a slump. Let's get back to moving guys over and scoring runs, manufacturing those productive outs that BK likes to talk about. Yeah. Let's find a way to do
those
that.
Analytics.
Those darn analytics. The way I kind of think of it is what I talked about during the Blues season, where it was like, man, you're finding ways to win 1-goal games. When you can get this offense going, you're going to feel better because you know you can win those tight games. If you're the Cardinals, once the offense comes, that's the part I'm skeptical of. But once the offense comes, now you know that you can win 3-2 games. You know your bullpen can lock it down. You'll manufacture runs. I think that is a huge feather in the cap for winning teams.
To me, it's like if you're the Denver Nuggets, you know your offense is eventually going to come around. But if you're going through like a dry spell where you're just not shooting the ball really well, if you find a way to win some gritty games like 95 to 90,
hand it to Jokic.
I think you'll find a way eventually to say, okay, we can do that. Now, if we've got the offense going, like we can win in any different way that you want to play. Or a college basketball team that does something like that, like UConn, right? They could win with grit. They could win with flash up and down the court. However you want to play, we're going to be better than you. And I'm not saying that the Cardinals are going to be that, but I do think it's helpful to be able to have different clubs in your bag. I think last year they only had one. They knew how to drive. They had no way to putt. And this year, you're putting.
I carry a ton of clubs in my bag, BK, and it doesn't help my golf game.
He's Alex, it's T-Bone, I'm BK. It sounds like the stream is down right now, so if you're looking for a way to listen to us, I don't know how you would do so if you're listening to us right now, but if you're looking for a way, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the best way to find us right now if you're not near an actual terrestrial radio. So, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. You could get involved with the graveyard chat over there as well. We will chat with Eno Sarris of The Athletic coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're always happy to be joined by Eno Sarris here on BK and Ferrario. He writes for The Athletic, also does great things on his podcast as well for the Athletic Podcast Network. Joins us now on 101 ESPN via the hotline. Eno, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Wish it was under better circumstances here in St. Louis, but one of the reasons we are calling you today is because you do great work at breaking down players across Major League Baseball. And one of those players, Jordan Walker, who was sent down yesterday by the Cardinals. When you saw the news, Eno, what was your initial reaction to the Cardinals doing basically the exact same thing that they did this time last year in sending Walker down to AAA to fix things?
I can understand it. From the perspective of the team trying to shake things up and turn things around. From the perspective of the future of the player, I think it could be a good thing because I did talk to a GM about this, and they said that they had studied the value of resets. So basically sending a struggling player back, a young player back down to the minors, and that they'd found some value in it just statistically. And I think that value is in confidence, almost more than anything else, because some of the adjustments he has to make at the major league level. It's just going to be easier if he finds success again and maybe makes some tweaks and then comes to the major leagues riding success as opposed to, pressing as he would be in the major leagues. And also regular playing time. He was losing playing time in the major leagues because all these trying to win games, I guess. And so, I think it makes sense from both sides. The one side that I just wanted to push back on was that I still have optimism for this player. And these 67 plate appearances this season do not change my entire opinion of him. For his career, he's still an above-average hitter. He makes about average contact, about average patience with top-end batted ball velocities, top-end bat speed. So that's a really good combination of things that should produce eventually somebody who can hit like 270, get on base, hit 25 to 30 homers, and his speed's non-zero too. So this is still an exciting young player. He's just hit a roadblock.
So unlike a lot of people in St. Louis, you're not ready to call Jordan Walker a bust yet?
No, I mean, for example, even this year, which has been tough, he's hit the ball 113 miles an hour. And if you look among other players that have hit the ball 113, only 20 qualified players have hit the ball more than 113 miles an hour. And I can read you some of the names: Ronald Acuna Jr., Bobby Witt Jr., Pete Alonso, Ian Happ, Ketel Marte, Mike Trout. Should I stop? I mean, none of these guys are bad.
So go ahead, Eno.
Hitting the ball that hard, what happens is if you can hit the ball that hard, it means that you're going to hit more balls at 110 than other people. You're going to hit more balls at 105 than other people because you can hit the ball 113. So it describes your raw power. The raw power is still there. And even his barrel rate is pretty good. So he kind of lines up as somebody who has similar stats to a William Contreras. In fact, he's not that far off of a Christian Encarnacion Strand or a Pete Alonso even. So, those are all players that people are excited about.
So, you put the tweet out yesterday talking about the pulled balls in the air and how the percentages dropped significantly for the Cardinals since Jeff Albert left. We've talked with a lot of different hitting coaches in the past and asked, if they feel like their role is impactful in terms of the ups and downs of the season. But do you feel like the Jeff Albert effect is what hurt the Cardinals when he left?
I don't know. It's tough to say because when they were number one in pulled fly balls while Jeff Albert was there. And when you're number one in any stat like that, I feel like it's a confluence of scouting, luck, coaching, and players, right? Like anytime you're at the top of the sport, all four of those things are going right. And some of those things are still the same with Jeff Albert gone. And I know, for example, that Nolan Arenado started pulling fly balls during Jeff Albert's tenure in St. Louis. but that he also worked with outside coaches. I know that, Paul Goldschmidt started pulling fly balls in St. Louis. I don't know myself if he worked with outside coaches, but almost every hitter does now. So it's really hard to pin down and say it's because Jeff Albert left. But I will say St. Louis right now is 30th in pulled fly balls. That's bad because pulled fly balls are the best outcome in baseball. You have almost a 1,500 slugging on pulled fly balls. You get 500 to center field, 300 to opposite field. Even pulled line drives aren't as good as pulled fly balls. Pulled fly balls are the best thing in the sport, and the Cardinals are not doing it.
I think sometimes it's unfortunate, but anytime you have somebody that uses data, you get put into this box of, oh, that guy's just the data guy. And you're much more.
He doesn't watch the game.
Exactly. And you're so much more than that. And you talk to pitchers about their grips. Like you really dive into this game in a way that very few do. So when you say they're really low right now, they're last in pulled fly balls, I think there's probably some people on our text line that'll be like, yeah, but if you try to get everybody to pull the fly balls, now you're going to end up having them do a bunch of things that are unintended consequences. So I know it's more than that. It's about timing. It's about which pitches you're hitting and all of those different things. So how can they improve there? How do they get that back on track?
There is a trade-off because to pull a fly ball, you get the ball out in front. And to get the ball out in front, sometimes it costs some strikeouts. Maybe that's what's going on with Paul Goldschmidt's strikeout rate. And obviously, there's some aging going on with that crew. And then lastly, you don't necessarily, even though I'm saying that I love pull fly balls, you don't necessarily want like Masyn Winn and Victor Scott pulling fly balls. You want them spraying the ball and getting on base because you want the guys who have the bat speed, the batted ball, the strength to pull the fly ball into the seats. So it's not like, I'm not saying it's a blanket thing. It's just it's a window into why their power hitters are struggling. And I did sit down and talk to Lars Nootbaar about this, and he said that when you train for bat speed, it's really easy because you've got a monitor in front of you that shows your bat speed. And you can just be like, I want that thing to say 75. And so I'm going to swing hard and try to hit the ball and look at the monitor. And if it says 75, I'm going to be like, okay, that was good, But when it comes to pulling fly balls, it's about getting onto plane quickly. It's about a movement in the back when you're getting that bat, into the zone. And it's a lot of feel. And it's kind of hard to look at the technology and say, oh, that was good. It's something where you need to kind of feel it. It's a kind of an art rather than a science as much. And, it's something that Nolan Arenado desperately wants to do and has not been doing as much as he has in the past. It's something that Paul Goldschmidt wants to do. It's something that Lars Nootbaar wants to do. So I know they want to do it, and they're not doing it. I would assume that maybe Jeff Albert could help them because he's helped this team in particular do this in the past. But it's something that may just take a little bit of time.
Eno Sarris does great work for The Athletic. He's joining us here on BK and Ferrario. You mentioned the two players that I wanted to ask you a question about, and that's Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Paul Goldschmidt is 36 years old. Nolan Arenado is 33. And when you look at their slugging percentages right now, Arenado's at 390 and Goldie is slugging 278 so far this year. When you see those things and you look into the numbers, what is your level of concern with guys like that are aging a bit?
Yeah, what's really interesting is that they're tracking bat speed now using the technology that's available to them. It's called Hawkeye. It's all the cameras in each ballpark, and we're going to get some information about bat speed pretty soon from the home office on their data on their stats pages. But they've been kind of leaking some out and showing some of the visualizations. And one of the visualizations they showed recently was an aging curve for bat speed. And what they showed was that after 31, bat speed starts to really drop off precipitously among hitters. Now, you have had hitters that are trying to offset that. So Mookie Betts went to Driveline and used weighted bats to increase his bat speed, knowing that he was right in that range where his bat speed would go down. I know that Nolan Arenado has trained at Driveline, so I would assume that and I know that Paul Goldschmidt even used some weighted bats at driveline. So I know that they've tried to offset that, but there's also, I've tried to offset a lot of things in my life as I've aged. I'm running a lot more than usual, and yet, I'm not the skinniest I've ever been. Let's just put it that way. And
that might be the beer, to be fair.
Yeah, right. It might be the beer. So I think they're doing the right things. There's some evidence that, better days should come. Like, Goldschmidt has still hit the ball 110. So it's not like he's fully fallen off. That is one of his lower max exit velocities. So it's a little bit lower than usual. But shouldn't he be able to slug at least, 400, 420? Like, he should be able to get back to that 20 homer level. And I don't really see like an associated, like, really bad ground ball rate or anything that says to me that he's unhealthy or that something really is wrong with his swing. So I do think those guys will get better. Maybe as the weather warms, maybe as they just get used to it. Arenado's still making a ton of contact, a little bit too many ground balls, hasn't hit that top end bat speed, but I kind of think these guys are going to figure it out.
On a positive side, what are you seeing from Masyn Winn this season on the bat side?
Yeah, I mean, he's exactly, the opposite of what I've been talking about. I mean, he's doing a really good job not pulling the ball a ton. And he's kind of doing this cool thing where it's almost like 30-30-30 everywhere. 30 pull, 30 center, 30 oppo, like a third ground balls, a third fly balls. It's like he's doing a really good job of that. And what I like is there's a lot of guys who make as much contact as him that just swing at everything. Because they can make contact at everything, but he's doing this thing where he can make a ton of contact. His swing strike rate is one of the better ones in the league, but he's being patient too because he knows he's a table setter. And so I have some hopes that Victor Scott can reach this kind of profile as well, because they're not that far off from each other in terms of bat speed and other things. They're obviously both really fast guys. I think it'd be kind of exciting at some point to have both these guys in the lineup. It'd be very interesting to see if that works in today's game because they may only hit, sort of 10 homers a year. But if they get on base that much, it's going to be good for the lineup. So Masyn Winn, there's nothing to say that's bad about it.
Final thing on Masyn Winn, I did want to ask you one follow-up. When I look at like the outs above average, for example, it seems to be lagging with him. It's a -2 so far this year, and I'm a numbers guy, but when I see this, I just want to say watch the games because I don't know how he's been a negative defensively for the Cardinals. When you look at a number like that, especially this early in the season for a player like Masyn Winn, is that something that, like, because he gets to so many balls and maybe he ends up having a couple errors here and there that can affect a number like that early on?
Yeah, I mean, defensive numbers are far behind offensive numbers. I would say the best numbers we have are offensive numbers. Second best are pitching numbers. Very last are fielding numbers. And so we've improved them. Outs above average is one of the better ones. We're trying our best. But the real problem is this. If you are a pitcher, you can face 750 batters over the course of the season. If you're a hitter, you can get 650 plate appearances. If you're a fielder, you might get 200 or 300 chances at the ball. And you take those 200 or 300 chances, and 250 of them are atom balls. And, like at like at you,
right.
that don't give you any information. So now you're talking about, okay, over the course of the season, 50 balls are going to tell me if you're a good hitter or a fielder or not. And then you divide that by 6. Now we're talking that we're judging Masyn Winn on 8 to 10 balls right now. And that's just not enough.
Yep.
If he booted one of those, 8 to 10 balls, he's going to look bad. And that just should be luck. The ball bounced weird, it hit a rock, whatever it was, so. So when I watch him, I think the eye test is still super, super valuable for defense.
Hey, we appreciate the time as always, man. You make us smarter about baseball, and we certainly appreciate that. We look forward to talking with you again soon, hopefully as Jordan Walker starts to heat up and gets his way back to the big leagues.
Yeah, I think there's still a good bat in there. Thanks for having me.
That's Eno Sarris. Appreciate his time as always. You can find his great work over at The Athletic. Listen to him as well on the Rates and Barrels podcast over on the Athletic Podcast Network. Alex, when you hear what he's talking about there with Jordan Walker, with Nolan Arenado, with Paul Goldschmidt, with Masyn Winn, what stood out to you about our conversation there with Eno Sarris?
That I'll hone in on the Jordan Walker side of it, because that's the one that I think a lot of people are interested in, including myself. It sounds like that everything that he's done this season hasn't been like, oh man, he's fallen short, he doesn't know what he's doing up there. It's just something is off with his swing, and it's a matter of getting him down, getting a couple more reps, and getting him back up here. Although, again, I don't like the idea. I would like to see him figure it out at the major league level. It sounds like just with Jordan Walker, you're talking about tweaking a couple of things with his swing, and you're going to get back to who he's expected to be, and I think you'll get that pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think outside of the Walker conversation, what he said on Goldie and Arenado made me feel a little bit better about those guys kind of figuring it out. You know, watching the eye test, and it's a small sample size, and I'm more of an eye test guy myself. Watching them, I go, oh boy, they look old. That's what they look like. Yep. But to hear him say, like, hey, the numbers for Goldie are a lot better when you kind of peek under the hood than what it looks like right now, makes him feel a little bit more confident that they should be able to try and figure this out.
Yeah, I get the sense that a lot of this is timing for a lot of the Cardinals players right now, and they're just working to get that timing back, and whenever it clicks, hopefully, I've got my fingers crossed, we'll start to see better results. My big question on Goldie and on Arenado still is the power. Is that going to turn around? I think Arenado's been better lately, hitting the ball a little bit harder. You can see it with a little bit more authority. The doubles are starting to come, and hopefully those eventually become home runs, and they leave the yard as it starts to warm up a little bit. Goldie's not there yet. I think what we'll see with Goldie is Goldie will eventually get to where Arenado is now, and hopefully that takes place while Arenado gets to where, like, Wilson Contreras is right now. If that happens, when that happens, we're going to start seeing a very different version of the Cardinals offense. I just hope it's a matter of when and not if, because if those guys don't get it going, the entire season really changes in terms of the expectations.
Bat swing speed for guys over the age of 31 is a little alarming. But Mookie figured it out, so if Mookie can figure it out, anybody can.
To be fair, like, Goldie's been going against that aging curve for 5 years now. He's already, like, broken that model in terms of the way that he's been playing over the last few seasons.
But maybe the fountain of youth ran out of water.
It's possible. I mean, when we've seen this before, right? We talked about this with Gersh, where he said, hey, when it goes, sometimes it just goes and there's no rhyme or reason as to why, and it's just gone. We saw it with Adam Wainwright, where he got hit with a comebacker against the Atlanta Braves and was never the same again. That was just it. That day, he took them out, and I think it was a great game for him, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. He never had the velo again. He thought it was some kind of an extension thing. He was landing on it wrong, and then for the entire next season, it was just over. And that might be the case for Goldie, where he lost his power, and then it was just all gone. I think Arenado's a little different. He's the one that right now I'm having a lot more confidence in. The batting average is there. That's something that can help prop him up. But I will say power is the next thing that I am.
I will say, because I saw somebody text this in saying coaching matters, guys, and the Cardinals don't have it. Like, just said that. And as much as his numbers show, like when Jeff Albert was here, the pulled ball percentage was significantly higher than what it is now. But he even said, guys don't work with their hitting coach. They work with 8 other hitting coaches away from the team.
And they do work with the hitting coach as well.
Of course, but all of their prep for a season comes with somebody else. And when something's gone wrong, they're not just going to Turner Ward to talk to him. They're calling up their hitting gurus and talking to them of what's going wrong and sending them video. It's just like in a golf swing. Sorry, BK, I'm on a rant now.
Please.
It's like in a golf swing where if you know something's off, you have somebody film you and watch you take swings and be like, okay, what's wrong here? You send it to 8 other people and say, hey, show me what's wrong. It's not one person that tells you you're doing this wrong and this is why they pay me the big bucks.
And sometimes it can be too many people. Like with your golf swing, like if you have too many different people that are in your head and you're just so in your head about what you're doing, eventually you lose the feel. Yeah. And that's what Eno was talking about there as well. Like, yes, there's a lot of stuff that you can measure now in Major League Baseball. But ultimately, it comes back to see ball, hit ball, and hopefully hit ball hard. And if you do that, eventually you're just locked in, right? We talk about guys going on a heater in basketball where you're just kind of in the zone and you just start making threes and you feel like you can't miss, and the basketball looks like you're shooting like an apple into the hoop because you're just so big. Like, It's tough, man. Sometimes you see a beach ball and other times you see a greased BB. And when you're at the plate, when you're seeing the beach ball, it feel really good. When you see the greased BB, it feels like you can never get a hit again. So baseball's hard.
That's why my golf coach is Pink Whitney, so maybe the players should try that on the field.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to questions and answers. More likely to happen is next.
Terry Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Arizona Diamondbacks yesterday 5-1 as they take 2 of 3 from Arizona. They are off today before they start a 3-game set at the New York Mets tomorrow. 6:10 will be first pitch. And Miles Michaels will get the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear the first round of the NFL Draft as well as coverage starting at 6 o'clock. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Let's play a game of more likely to happen. You give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. Guys, let's start out with this. More likely to miss the playoffs this year, the Philadelphia Phillies or the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Ooh, neither.
We've seen both of these teams now here in St. Louis. Which one is more likely to miss the playoffs, in your opinion, Alex?
I'll say it's the Diamondbacks. There's too much star power on that Phillies team. And even that they started slow, I'm just not going to doubt Zach Wheeler, Bryce Harper being the two main ones on that.
Yeah, I would say more likely it is the Diamondbacks that miss just because they've got two significant pitching injuries. And if they have someone else go down, whether it be Monty or Gallen, they're in legitimate trouble. And their bullpen sucks. It is not a good bullpen. So I would say more likely the Diamondbacks, and they're going to have to play the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants. And you look at the NL East, the Mets are okay, Nationals are kind of okay right now, Miami stinks, and the only team that's legitimately good in that division is the Braves. So I would say more likely Arizona misses.
I think Arizona is more likely to miss as well. Philly's got a great rotation, and they have too many guys in their lineup that have proven track records. I don't think that's the kind of team that ends up missing out on the playoffs. So far this year, JT Realmuto has been terrible for them offensively. Bryce Harper hasn't really hit his stride offensively either. Nick Castellanos has been awful, and Kyle Schwarber hasn't gone through his hot stretch yet. They're going to be a really good team, I believe. I think they've got a chance to be the third. I think they're probably going to end up with the third best record in the National League.
Phillies?
I think the Phillies will.
I'm with you on that one. Plus, they're going to make a move at the deadline.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Dombrowski doesn't sit on his hands.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
he's going to be, that's the team that will target somebody from the Astros. This Astros thing, by the way, they are the 2023 Cardinals.
Justin Verlander.
Valdez.
I was to say Justin Verlander, when he's healthy, will be a Philly.
I like him.
I like that one. That makes a lot of sense.
Jose Altuve.
He ain't getting
they'll
traded.
Get Tucker. Oh. They'll do a package deal. They don't even need Tucker, but Dombrowski.
Meanwhile, the Cardinals will be
Who's getting Bregman? He's been terrible
Cardinals
so far this year. But Bregman's going to be the one that team will change. We knew the Astros in some way were going to impact the postseason. I didn't know that this was going to be the way that it was going to happen, but here we are. All right, Alex, what do you got for us?
More likely to happen, guys. Nolan Gorman hits 40 home runs in a season, or Jake Neighbors scores 40 goals in a season?
Gorman.
I'd go Gorman as well because he's got raw power. And Neighbors, when I think 40 goal scorer, I think of it's kind of like raw power, but it's a legitimate shot. And
Michael Bunting?
I don't know. Sure.
I caught you there.
I'm thinking like a Kyrou shot, where or a Tarasenko shot. Like Tarasenko could score 40 goals. Why? Not because he's parking his butt in front of the net, but because he had a legitimate shot. And I don't think Neighbors has that, but I think he can always be like a 25, 30 goal scorer because he just parks his rear end right in front of the goalie and is going to grab all those juicy rebounds.
I'm going to say Neighbors here because I think that's how he scores those 40 goals, with his butt in front of the net. I think Gorman, you'll see 30, 35. I don't think you'll ever see 40.
T-Bone?
Guys, more likely to be a threat in the NL Central long term in terms of this season, the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Milwaukee Brewers?
Brewers.
I say Pirates.
How come? I'm not giving my explanation, but I am going to follow up on yours. Why?
I wonder why you didn't give an explanation.
No explanation needed. I just
more talented.
Yeah, that's right. Pittsburgh. I think they're going to get their what's his cat Skeens. I think he'll be up.
Dude,
it's going to just make their pitching even better.
He gave up a run the other day, and that was the news of the day.
Dude has been lethal, and then this Jared Jones. I mean, they've got the pitching, and the guy that One of my favorite players that's not a Cardinal right now is O'Neal Cruz. I love watching that dude play baseball.
The reason I said the Brewers, I think sometimes this can be overstated, but I think it's true, man. Like, their infrastructure is real, and they have some of what the Guardians do in the American League, where you just always assume they're going to win 90 games. I don't know how. I don't understand it. They have, like, the worst offense in the history of Major League Baseball. They have, like, 2 guys that hit home runs on their team, but they always find new pitching. Their bullpen is always dynamite with, like, 3 new guys that develop every single season. They play good defense, and they end up getting to the postseason, and they do nothing. They do nothing when they get there. But they're just always a team that wins 90 games. So until that is proven wrong, I'm just going to bet on the Brewers to be the team that figures it out. And the Pirates typically are the opposite of that. So that's why I go Brewers.
I say Brewers, but I think it's very close because the difference between this year's Brewers team and like that last 6-year run that the Brewers had is this offense is actually hitting. Now, I don't know how sustainable it is, but Rhys Hoskins has played fairly well. They've got Contreras that's hitting. Adames is hitting. Jackson Trino's had some ups and downs, but he looks like he's going to end up working out for them. And Yelich was awesome before his back got hurt. The fear I have with the Pirates is I love their pitching. Like, I think they actually have a legitimate pitching staff. They've got a solid bullpen. Jones, Skeens, and when Mitch Keller gets it figured out, that's going to be a legitimate 1-2-3 punch. The problem is they are being so cautious with all those guys. Like, they're pulling Jared Jones after 5 innings at 60 pitches just because of the innings limit. Skeens is going to have the same thing. So at some point, they're going to pull the reins back on those guys. And I think when they do that, they don't have the offense to support it.
I think this is year 1. Like, year 0, I guess would be the better way to put it. Next year is the year where you hope, if you're a Pirates fan, things kind of start coming together in a way that
like what the Orioles are doing this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, Orioles kind of 2 years ago almost.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if, Pittsburgh hangs around 500 and then they get to 82 to 84 wins this year.
Remember 2 years ago when Baltimore ended up trading Trey Mancini at the deadline? And everybody was like, what are you doing? Your team is good. Like, they weren't actually good. They were just really young and fun.
Yeah.
That's this year's Pirates.
Yeah.
They're going to be good. They're going to be frisky. They're going to win some games that you're like, what the hell? Are they legit? And then at the end of the year, they win 83 games. And everybody's excited about them going into next
season. They do have a good bullpen, though.
Yeah. They need to.
They've got pitching.
I'm going to say this. They need to fire their manager. Derek Shelton is terrible. They are the most fundamentally flawed team I've seen over the last however long he's been there.
I said that about Torey Lavola. When I remember seeing the Diamondbacks play the Cardinals, I think it was 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
He was actively hurting their team. Like, he was actively making decisions that were like, you're bringing in a lefty to face Paul Goldschmidt? Dude, he played there. You know he crushes lefties. And now he's a good manager.
Now it's very smart to pull in lefty or righty against Goldschmidt.
Couple quick things here before we get to questions and answers. More likely to get back to the big league roster by the All-Star game, Victor Scott or Jordan Walker? We all agree it's Walker, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Walker's going to be a couple weeks.
I don't see Scott being up here till September, maybe.
Agreed. More likely to happen, Kevin Hayes is traded or Dalibor Dvorsky makes the Blues out of camp next year?
Dvorsky makes the team out of camp. I think if Dvorsky makes the team and I think Hayes is a part of this roster unless they can find a way to flip him for another NHL veteran. I think he's a protection for Dvorsky.
I'd agree with that. I think it's more likely Dvorsky is here. I don't know if Army's going to be willing to eat salary for Hayes, and I think that's what he's got to do to trade him.
Think Wyatt Johnston. Think Wyatt Johnston when you think Dvorsky. Like that's.
I'd be in on that.
That's exactly who I believe he is going to be like at the NHL level.
He's Alex. This T-Bone on BK. Questions and answers coming up next. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Let's start with this from the 314. Guys, it is officially draft day in the NFL. Who makes the biggest surprise move in this year's draft?
The Patriots, because they're going to freaking select J.J. McCarthy 3rd overall. And it's going to be the worst decision that they ever make. But other than that, I'm not really sure. Maybe Denver. I could see Denver making a surprise move to move up to get a quarterback. Minnesota.
If there's going to be a big surprise, it's probably going to involve something with a quarterback.
Trading up to get a quarterback, yeah.
Draft.
Yeah,
Like the Raiders moving up for Michael Penix.
Chicago retrades the 1st overall pick for Justin Fields and says that we made a mistake.
If you're Chicago, by the way, they have 3 picks in this year's draft. Something that's going to be really interesting to monitor is
overall or just the 1st round?
Yeah, dude. They
How?
traded all of their picks.
For what?
They traded for their 2nd round pick for the defensive end, Montez Sweat.
Oh, yeah?
They traded another one, I think, last year to move up, if I'm not mistaken. They traded another one for like a defensive back. Like, they've just traded a bunch of mid-round picks.
Well, you better
So
make
I think
this
they
good.
might move back from number 9, and I will be very curious to see what the reaction is for them from their fans if like Roma Dunze is there and they decide to move back in the 1st round despite him being on the board because they just need to accumulate assets. Like they need more draft picks.
I can't blame them
continue
for
to fill out
that.
that roster.
That's interesting because I didn't realize they had that few picks. That's
didn't either,
LA
man.
Rams style-ish right there.
And they weren't even good.
I think to Alex's point, I think Minnesota, Las Vegas, Denver, those 3 teams are the ones that I'm kind of keeping an eye on as trade-up people. By the way, keep an eye on – I don't think they'll do it in the 1st round just because I can't see a quarterback falling this low. But let's say Penix sits on the board all the way to 24. What do the Cowboys do?
Oh, dude.
Because we've talked about it. Like, I don't get the sense that Dak's going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys next year. And I don't know if you can do that if you don't draft a quarterback, though. So I'm fascinated to know if they pull off the biggest shock of the NFL draft.
I think Penix goes to 1 or 2 places, Dallas or Las Vegas. Those are the 2 places I can see him ending up.
I think he ends up in Vegas.
I
There's just too
kinda
much
do
smoke.
too.
Dallas, by the
Penix
way,
jersey.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Dane Bergler from The Athletic. He's their big NFL draft guru. And he said he thinks Dallas is going to potentially take a linebacker in the 1st round.
Oh, that's worked before.
So there's another surprise that could take place. Everybody says terrible linebacker draft. Nobody should go in the 1st round. There might not even be a top 50 linebacker in this year's class. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys are like, well, we need a linebacker. Who's the top guy on our board, Jerry?
Jerry Jones.
pull
We're
off-
all in this year.
They're going to be like, who was it? I think it was the Raiders when they had Gruden, where they took Farrell, the defensive end from like Clemson. Like Mel Kiper's like, I had him as a 3rd round pick.
Dude, I will never forget when they had Mayock as their GM. He exclusively took guys from Clemson or Alabama. It was like, hey, who's in the national championship this year? We're exclusively drafting from this
Smart.
kid.
Does that work out for him?
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Somebody said Bears have 4 picks. It's 4 picks in this year's draft.
You idiot.
So they have 2 1st rounders, a 3rd rounder, and a 4th rounder that they got from Philadelphia.
You don't need to trade back. Just keep those 4. You're good.
That's all they've got. No, there are no picks in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round, and no 2nd round.
Do they have all their
To be
picks
fair,
next year?
like, who really cares about day 3?
100%. I
Yeah,
think so.
seriously, I would just strike with those picks and be like, let's just make this team awesome.
I'm pretty sure Les Snead and Sean McVay didn't even like show up for the 1st round the last couple of years.
Pete DeBoer didn't last year for Dallas.
Yeah, we saw.
Final question here. Alex, what'd you think of your boy Sheldon Keefe last night?
I mean, he's got no chance in this playoff series, so I don't really know. Just plan
He's
on.
going to get fired because William Nylander got a
No,
concussion.
he's going to get fired
man.
because that team decided to pay 4 guys $40+ million and not focus on a goaltender.
And one of them isn't there. He's not
Yes!
playing right now.
And the other just picked up his first point in Game 3, Mitch Marner, which, by the way, they might trade Marner this offseason. And
Imagine if the Blues with Craig Berube, when they went on their run in 2019, if they got to the playoffs and then Vladimir Tarasenko got concussed and wasn't available. It wouldn't have been Craig Berube's fault that they didn't advance.
They had that in what was the series that got swept by Colorado or lost 5 where Perron wasn't available? He had COVID.
Yeah,
it was like
the bubble.
Like the moment that series started, you're like, man, it is going to take a miracle. And I was like, Perron's going to come. I was like, oh, dang it.
Or against the Avs a couple of years ago when Benner goes
got
down.
hurt.
Like, you had
Yeah.
no shot. It was never going to happen.
Poor Ville Husso.
I know.
Unfortunately for Sheldon Keefe, he's got no shot in it. Jeremy Swayman has not lost a game to the Toronto Maple Leafs in like 4 years.
That's tough.
You're just they are so he is so in Toronto's head that Sheldon Keefe sent Max Domi over the boards last night to bump into Jeremy Swayman to try and get him off of his game.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll talk a little bit more NFL heading into tonight's NFL draft. I want to ask some superlatives from the guys. We just got into one of them. What's the biggest surprise pick that you expect to see tonight? I want to ask another one. What do you think will be the biggest reach that we see in this first round of the draft? We'll get into that coming up in 15 minutes. But coming up next, the Cardinals get a lot of flack for their player development, especially after the Jordan Walker news yesterday. A lot of it's deserved. I do want to give them a little praise for what we're seeing right now with Masyn Winn, and we'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Got a huge jump. Line into left center field. That's down for a hit. Masyn on his way to third. They're going to wave him. Here he comes. Here comes the relay throw. It won't be made. They put him in motion. Gorman puts it in play, and the Cardinals extend the lead.
That's just some good old-fashioned baseball right there. You put Winn in motion, drives it in that gap that you mentioned. There's plenty of room. McCarthy chases it, but with that jump of Winn, he scores easily on this play.
Alex, there are very few young players that I've enjoyed watching more in their first stretch of games for the Cardinals than what we've seen so far this year with Masyn Winn. He's played 23 games so far this year, despite having a back issue for many of them. Is batting .315 and has an OPS of 800. And oh, by the way, the offense is secondary with him. Base running has been spectacular. The hit and run yesterday, amazing. That audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest. He went first to home faster than any Cardinals player in the StatCast era. So in the last 5 years, nobody has run faster from first to home than what we saw yesterday from Masyn Winn. And he's playing legit Gold Glove caliber defense at shortstop. Did you guys see that double play that he turned the other day to end that game?
Wow, almost turned it.
It was amazing. No, he did turn it. The throw to first.
His foot was that close, though.
You don't have a guy that's made that throw in 15 years here in St. Louis. Yeah, like it's been a while since we've had something like that to watch at shortstop here in St. Louis. He's everything we were hoping for and then some so far for the St. Louis Cardinals. And the reason why I wanted to take a little bit of time to discuss it today is because the Cardinals have been getting a lot of flack in recent days, deservedly so, for their development of young players within the system, rushing them through, making them get to the big leagues too fast. T-Bone, I know you've got some thoughts on that. We'll get to it here in a minute. This is one case in particular where I do think they deserve some credit. Alex Masyn Winn, when he was drafted by the Cardinals, was this like super raw developmental prospect that was a two-way player.
Supposed to be a pitcher,
shortstop, not really sure where the development's going to take him, but his bat progressed quicker than he did as a pitcher, so they decided, you know what, we're focusing this guy on being a shortstop long-term. And they molded this ball of clay into a hell of a baseball player, dude. According to the reports nationally, he was more of an athlete than a baseball player at first, and they turned him in, and he turned himself in, I want to give him a lot of credit too, to a fantastic shortstop. And now we're seeing the results of that. The first legit homegrown shortstop in 30 years for the Cardinals. Just an amazing development for the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, and you said it best. I give a lot of credit to Masyn Winn on the development side of this because, like, mentally, the kid seems like he's in the spot that you need to see progress of a star in baseball. Like when we talked with him last year, we even ended that conversation. We were like, damn, that kid's going to have a really good future in the majors. He even told us how it goes. Every time he's transitioned to a new level, it started off slow. He's able to adjust. And then he said, once I adjust, I take off from there. It showed in AA. It showed in single A. Everywhere he's gone, he's had that. So I give him a lot of credit because mentally he's very strong. You have blurbs that take place like last season where you make a slow start offensively. You're not there. Maybe you've made mistakes at times this season, but he finds a way to forget about it and move forward. And that's the development phase that you give him credit for. And on the Cardinal side, for people that say that they don't know how to develop these guys, you do have to give them credit for knowing the right times to move him to different levels, the right times to let him adjust to a new level. And you give him credit, the Cardinals giving them credit to what they did last season because everybody was saying, bring them up, bring them up, bring them up. And they said, no, we're going to wait this one out until we're ready to do that. And they did so with Masyn Winn.
Yeah, and I think the most impressive part is because, like, the glove, the defense, like, we knew that was going to be there. That's no surprise this season, what we've seen from him. The impressive part is that he was able to take that small sample size from last year offensively, go, okay, what do I need to do to have success at the big league level?
Yeah.
And it's not hitting for power. I mean, he's got a couple doubles, a couple triples. He doesn't have any home runs. It is just, I'm going to put the barrel of the ball to the bat. I mean, as Eno Sarris said, like, he's not whiffing a lot. His whiff rate is 91st percentile in Major League Baseball. He's just spraying the ball over the place. He's doing what John Jay made a career out of, which was, hey, I'm just going to put the bat to the ball and I'm going to see where it goes. And I'm just going to hit for singles, not hit for a ton of power. And he will mold into a little bit of power. Like, I think he probably will be a 10 home run guy by like year 3, 4, 5 in his career. But this year, hey, keep it simple, stupid is what they would say. And that's what he's doing right now at home plate. He was able to make those adjustments. And that's why, like, at some point, baseball's going to adjust to him. So at some point, he's going to go through a cold stretch here. I think he's going to have the ability to come out of it. It's what I saw from Gorman when he first got called up was Gorman would have a stretch where he looked really good. And then there's a stretch where he cooled down. But then he'd make that adjustment right back. I think Winn's got that to him, but of course, different style than Gorman. But I think he's going to be able to make all these swings that happen across Major League Baseball in that adjustment period.
What really impresses me about him is early on, felt like he was just like, teams were approaching him as if he was going to be an easy out because they saw him last year. They're like, okay, This is the bottom of the order for the Cardinals. We'll get back up to the top. And at the time, we didn't know that the top of the order was going to stink. But they were like, hey, we'll just throw a bunch of stuff in the zone. And then he just started hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. And he didn't stop. And so teams adjusted. They said, all right, well, we can't do it that way anymore because he's just going to keep hitting, obviously. He's batting 300 plus. We're going to throw him some stuff outside of the zone, see if we can get him to chase. And you guys know what he has not done at all? Chase. This dude takes his walks. And I think that is such an important trait for a young player. We talked about this with Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan is going through a slump right now. But because he takes his walks, it doesn't feel like as big of a slump as it would if, like, a Nolan Gorman, for example, was going through a slump, which he is. Because Brendan Donovan, while batting .215 on the season, he's getting on base 32% of the time still. So you have that flotation device, essentially, which just keeps you above water, where you're still getting on base and you can impact games in other ways. Masyn Winn is getting on base 39% of the time. His walk rate was relatively low early on this year, but he's been taking more lately. He's just keeping the line moving. It's such an impressive trait to have as a young player, man, especially a guy like this that you would think is just going to come up and be this free swinger the way that Victor Scott was, and it hasn't been that way. You mentioned the conversation that we had with him, Alex, and sometimes you can take too much from one conversation with the player. It felt like we could tell in the moment of right after he got called up to the big leagues, this guy's going to get it figured out. I don't know what he's going to be at the big league level, but he's built with the right stuff, and typically those guys end up finding ways to make their skill sets work, especially when you have his ability at the big league level.
And real quick to the point of giving the Cardinals credit, I looked at his spring training numbers last season, and I mean, that guy earned the opportunity to be on the major league roster out of spring training. You're talking about a .333 batting average with a .949 OPS, and I mean, he had doubles, he had 2 home runs. Everything he did in that spring training was like, dude, this guy should be starting at the major league level. And instead, they said, no, we're going to let him figure it out a little bit more, and then we'll get him up here when we're ready for it, because you had the proper stopgap for him. So I do give the Cardinals credit in that sense of Masyn Winn of being like, hey, we'll slow play it with this kid.
And I think to your point on him taking walks, it's not like, Donovan taking a walk is a little bit different in terms of Donovan can't steal second base. He doesn't have the speed of Masyn Winn. So to you, and how you've always been clamoring for that manufactured slugging percentage that should be a stat in baseball, Winn can get a walk. He could get to second base, though, on the next pitch. And that's what they did yesterday. Now, granted, doing a hit and run with Gorman, a strikeout guy on an 0-2 count, not a fan of that, but it worked out. But he can manufacture slugging, quote unquote, to where he can take his walk or he can take a single and turn it into essentially a double by stealing that base without anybody having to hit him over there.
I think I underestimated, I've mentioned this a couple of times, I underestimated his speed, man, because we talked so much about Victor Scott and his 80 grade speed. I overlooked the fact that Masyn Winn is fast as hell, and like all of the things that I loved about Harrison Bader in terms of his profile as a player, Masyn Winn has all of those same things, but without as much strikeout and with more pizzazz to his game. It's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Would you guys consider moving him to leadoff?
Yes, right away. I think sometimes you try and protect him too much and say, like, no, he's doing well, let's keep him in this spot. And I can understand that, but because your offense has been so stagnant, I think you need energy at the top. And that's not taken away from Brendan Donovan. He's not providing the same spark that he provided last year at the top of the order. I would move Masyn Winn to the top of the order immediately, and then I would flip Lars Nootbaar and Wilson Contreras and have Winn, Nootbaar, Contreras is my 1, 2, 3.
And then Arenado.
And then Arenado and Goldschmidt, or however you want to combine those guys beyond it.
I think I would too.
I would do it against lefties. I think against righties, I still want to see Donovan up there at the top of the order. I know he's not hitting, but I expect that to change. And to your point, he's still drawing walks, so I want him as the guy that's going to set up the offense against right-handed pitching. Against lefties, though, I have no problem with going to Masyn Winn as your leadoff guy.
I think I would do it against both.
I just want to manufacture runs right now, and as we just talked about, he's going to be on second base if he gets on base for me before I get to Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, I'm okay with switching it back. Whenever Brendan Donovan does get himself back on track, he's the ideal leadoff guy, if we're being honest. Like, the guy is just such an on-base machine. But right now, while he's going through a bit of a slump, get him a little lower in the order. Like, you got to get as many at-bats as possible for your best hitters right now. And that means getting Wilson Contreras to the plate and Masyn Winn to the plate as often as humanly possible. Those are your two guys that are really, really contributing towards offense. So get them more at-bats. Get him the most at-bats possible. And it doesn't matter who's on the mound. Masyn Winn's hitting. Against right-handed pitching, he's been excellent so far this year. They've all got pretty minimal at-bats against lefties. I'd put him up at the top of the order. And I would start that in the next series. And you've got a long stretch of games right now, at least by the scheduled starters, where you're going up against a bunch of righties. I'd like to see it.
The reason I want to wait a little bit more is we're already in that phase of where baseball's adjusting to him. I just looked because I was like, man, I feel like he has been a little cooler of late. In the last night, he's hitting 208. Now, he does have a 394 on base, to your point on walks, but walks. I would much rather have him be against left-handers, throw him up there, because at least Donovan's still doing the same thing, and I just trust him against right-handed pitching.
He's Tanner. That's Alex on BK. Coming up next, we'll get to some of the superlatives for tonight's draft. Who's going to be the guy that ends up being the biggest reach in the first round of the draft? And where are these quarterbacks going to go? We give you our official predictions coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's time for some NFL quick hitters, and that means it is time for some NFL draft talk ahead of tonight's first round in the NFL draft. Everybody's wondering who's going to go to the #1 overall pick up in Chicago.
Who?
I think it's going to be Caleb Williams. You guys think that's probably a fair assumption at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Jaden Daniels.
I do want to ask you, though, where the next quarterbacks will land. Let's get our official predictions here. Jaden Daniels is widely speculated to be the pick at number 2 overall with Washington. We've seen crazier things happen, though, than a team having this massive smoke screen all draft process long and then going in a new direction. Alex, where do you think Jaden Daniels will be going by the end of the night?
Washington. I think Washington is going to take him. I think that Jaden Daniels is probably not certain he wants to be in Washington, and I don't know if I agree with Washington being like, well, bleep you, you're going to play for us anyway. Can't go well, but I do think they're going to take, that's the second best quarterback available.
Yeah, I'm with Alex. I think Daniels goes to Washington. There were also some reports like, hey, they kind of did the old apology route with Jalen Daniels. It seems to be a little bit better.
It always works.
I just don't see how, even if he was upset, how you don't go second best quarterback with the number 2 pick that can alter a franchise. Yeah, who cares if he's unhappy? He's going to be playing.
They called him back and they took him to Red Lobster and they apologized. They were like, here you go, man.
Fancy.
Sorry.
I think we're all on the same page here. I think they're going to end up going with Jaden Daniels as well at number 2 overall. And I think it ends up being a fine pairing. Like I actually think that could go pretty well. They've got some decent receivers there. If they get another weapon in like the second round, I think that could actually be a successful marriage there. All right. Drake May, widely considered to be the 3rd best quarterback in this year's draft. There's been some topic of conversation this morning. Tom Curran from New England, he's as plugged in as they come. He said he expects New England to take Drake May with the number 3 overall pick. Pretty Ricky. An NFL insider. Nope,
grind
not that
with
guy.
me.
A random dude on Twitter that has been right about like 90% of the things that he's reported or speculated on Twitter over the last 3 months, including for free agency. He says he believes that it'll be J.J. McCarthy at number 3 overall. So, conflicting reports. Alex, where do you think that Drake May will be headed by the end of the night?
I think this is going to be the New England Patriots. I think New England is going to be selecting Drake May. As much as the J.J. McCarthy thing is the one that everyone's like, oh my gosh, I don't buy it. I'm hoping that every other team in NFL sees what I see, and it's not the same type of quarterback with McCarthy. I think this will be Drake May. I don't know if it's the Patriots selecting him or if somebody trades into that number 3 spot, but I believe Drake May is going to be going number 3.
Well, give us your official prediction. What do you think happens? This is the last day, dude. You can't sit on the fence going into the draft.
What are you talking about? That's what we do on this show. We sit on the fence.
I'll go ahead and stand on the table. I think Minnesota's trading up to number 3.
Oh.
I think they're going to get super aggressive. I think they're going to trade 11. I think they're going to trade their late first-round pick that they got from...
See, I think they're trading to 5. And I think they're getting McCarthy.
I think they're getting Drake May. I think they're trading to 3, and they're going to take Drake May. I think they're trading their 2 firsts this year, their first-round pick next year, and their third-round pick this year. I think they're going to mortgage it all and say, we have to go get our guy, and this is our guy. So I think Drake May ends up in Minnesota.
I like that. Except I think Drake May is a Patriot. Yeah. I just don't see them moving out of this spot. And I know teams are going to offer them the world. It's not like we can already look ahead to next year and go, man, if we actually sucked for another year, look at who we could get at quarterback. Next year's class is awful. So I think they're going to look at that and say, we have to take a quarterback here at 3. I'm afraid ownership's going to get involved and go McCarthy, but I still think that the head coach is going to have some say. They're going to go Drake May at 3.
All right, next one up, J.J. McCarthy. Alex, where do you think he's going?
He's going 5 to the Vikings. I think it's the Vikings or the Broncos that trade to number 5, and I'll say the Vikings are going to be in more desperation mode, and that trade is going to hurt them in the long run.
I've got him going to the Broncos, who trade into number 5. I think the Giants want to get there. I don't know if they'll be willing to salvage enough to go get him and move up 1 spot. I think you're going to see Denver do some stupid-ish and trade the world to go up and get J.J. McCarthy at 5.
Agreed. That's my spot as well. I think the Giants are the team to watch here. I just think their ownership is going to end up getting involved and saying, we just paid our quarterback $40 million a year.
Let's not go get another
and
average
now you
one.
want me to trade more assets to go get a new quarterback because you failed with the last guy that we took in the top 10? No, we ain't doing that this year. We can do that next year if you guys want to do that. But we're not doing that right now. And I think in Denver, the guy that's calling all of the shots is Sean Payton, and he needs to get his quarterback. And the way to go do that is by trading up for J.J. McCarthy. Right, wrong, and different. Michael Penix Jr. is the next guy that is widely expected to go in the first round. Quarterback out of Washington. People either love or hate him. There's like no in between on Michael Penix Jr. Alex, where do you think he ends up going if he goes at all in the first round?
I think he goes in the first round. I think the Raiders take him. I think the Raiders actually trade up. Maybe they trade up to like 11 if Minnesota and the Chargers make a trade here, because I think the Raiders are going to be worried about Denver. And if Denver in your scenario doesn't trade up, in my scenario they stay at 12. I think the Raiders take Penix Jr. at like 11 or 12.
I'm going to call my shot. I'm going bold here, boys. G-Man. They need a quarterback, and I think they're going to be desperate, and this might be also my biggest reach of the draft. I think they may bite on Penix, and they may say the Jones experience was not good. Let's go get a gunslinger and Michael Penix Jr. We've got to reach. It's the quarterback. It's the most important position in the NFL in any sport. I think Penix goes to the Giants.
So the backup quarterback.
I think he goes to the Raiders, but I think they trade back.
Oh, wow.
To get him. I think they end up trading out of the number 13 overall pick. Somebody moves up probably for a tackle. I could see like New Orleans making a small move. Maybe you see like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, somebody like that moves up a little bit, and then they end up getting their guy in the middle of the first round. The Vegas Raiders end up with Michael Penix Jr. All right, those are our official predictions for the quarterbacks.
Whoa.
What is your official prediction?
You're not going to bring Bo Nix into the conversation?
No, he's not going first round.
The Rams are taking him
the
first round.
Do you guys think Bo Nix goes in the first round?
No.
Okay, cool. We're all on the same page. What is the biggest reach that you guys are expecting to see? Somebody that could go off the board earlier than we're expecting, and maybe you've got a team that you think ends up doing it.
Mine's McCarthy. I think the Vikings are going to reach and draft McCarthy. Trading, I don't think it's going to be as severe as the Carolina Panthers trade that they did to take Bryce Young, but I do think Minnesota is going to be mortgaging a lot to draft J.J. McCarthy, and that is going to bite them. I don't think it works out. They lose future assets, and they lose Justin Jefferson. I think Minnesota, the downfall of Minnesota, sorry, Marshy, if you're listening, is going to take place this evening.
So I said Penix at 5, another one, just to be different here. I think drafting Bowers in the top 10 is a reach, and I think the Jets are the team that does it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's so Jets.
It's just tight. We've had this conversation. Not many tight ends have a lot of success and don't really get the second contract.
Very rare.
It takes time to figure it out at the NFL level for tight ends, especially pass-catching ones. I think Bowers is that guy.
I think Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver that broke the 40-yard dash record at the NFL Combine, ends up going top 15.
Wow. God, he's a Ram.
Possibly as soon as the top 10. We've seen this so many times, dude. The really fast wide receiver goes way earlier than we expect.
Austin.
Think about, it obviously went poorly with his off-field stuff, but Henry Ruggs, it was a shock that he went as early as he did. I think he went above, who was it? The other Alabama wide receiver, Denver guy, end up getting traded to Cleveland this past offseason.
Oh, Juju.
Or Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy, sorry. Yeah.
He went ahead of him, and everybody was like, whoa, what? What are we doing here? It happens all the time. Super fast guy, gets pushed up the draft board. Somebody like Indianapolis could totally take him, and it wouldn't surprise me.
He went above CeeDee Lamb, too.
Yeah, dude.
And Justin Jefferson.
I'm telling you,
what the hell?
Weird stuff happens in the draft.
That was a poorly run organization.
And when you get a dude that runs that kind of fast, teams want to find a way to utilize him.
Damn.
So
Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins.
That was a great draft class for wide receivers, and they went that.
And they went Henry Ruggs.
Yeah. So I think that's the kind of thing you could see.
What I'm learning here, BK,
expected.
is don't take the speedy wide receiver.
It very rarely very rarely works out. But what's the old thing from what's the show? Arrested Development. Did it ever work for any of them? No, but it might for us. That's the way that people always look at it.
Like it.
All right, what's the pick you want to see? Where you're like, hey, I just think this is a great fit for both sides. Player, scheme, situation. You just want to see it happen, even if it feels realistic. Like maybe you want a team to trade up for player X. What's the fit that you most want to see, Alex?
Oh, I want to see the Detroit Lions either make an aggressive move to move up or select some type of defensive change maker for that team. I think in some
Cooper DeJean.
I've seen him. I've seen Kool-Aid McKinstry in mock drafts. I've seen Chop Robinson dropping that spot, and even T-Bone's guy from Illinois, Newton. I've seen all of these guys in that same conversation, and I think for Detroit, I want to see them be aggressive and get the best available player to them somewhere in that 25 range, because they're, 29 right now?
Yeah, something like that. I want to see the Bears take a wide receiver with that 9th pick. I know we were talking about trading out of it. I want to see them, if there's a wide receiver on the board for them that they really love, one of those like top 3 guys, I'd love to see them, even if it is a little bit of a reach, take another one. Just load up on weapons and figure it out once you get to training camp.
I'm going back.
I'd love to see them find a way to trade to 4 to get Harrison Jr. too. Won't happen, but
Oh, dude, that'd be amazing.
oh,
They don't have the draft capital to make that work, but God, it would be amazing.
give you all of the rest of our picks.
I really, and I mean really, want to see the Bills get super aggressive and trade up for one of those top 3 receivers.
Oh, wow. I've seen them trade up to get Thomas Jr. From LSU. That would be really... Do they have the assets to do that?
I mean, you're talking trading your 2nd-round pick this year and your 1st-round pick next year and maybe more. It would take a ton to move up that much. It would be a quarterback type of trade, or when the Atlanta Falcons traded up for Julio Jones. It's that kind of a move. But if you believe Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze are on that caliber of a prospect, might be worth it for you if you're Buffalo, because it's going to be expensive to pay your quarterback what you are. It is expensive. You need a number 1 weapon for him, and that's the kind of team that I could see maybe making that kind of an aggressive.
If you're Arizona...
I also really want to see Miami take Xavier Worthy.
Just to watch it all implode.
I mean, just the speed that they would have on the field at any given time with Worthy and Waddle and Tyreek.
Be fun.
The running backs that they have, it would be unbelievable.
If you're Arizona and Buffalo calls and say, look, we'll give you this year's first and then the next 2 years' 1st-round picks, I would trade that. Wouldn't you? Because if you're Arizona, Marvin Harrison Jr. is a great player, but it's not making you any better. You got other holes to fill.
At some point, Arizona needs players, man. This is something I think we overlook at times.
I still don't think they got the quarterback, though.
I think Kyler's fine. Let's find out. The way to find out is if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., right? So,
dude, I would love the Bills to get Harrison Jr.
It'd be a lot of fun. I think Neighbors is the guy that I want to see there.
Really?
Dude, the speed that he has with that arm from Josh Allen. Boy, howdy. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're diving into the junk drawer. But next, Major League executives agree with all of your criticism for the Cardinals front office. We'll tell you about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hydrogen here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Diamondbacks yesterday 5-1 as they take 2 of 3 from Arizona. They are off today as they travel to New York, where they'll start a 3-game set with the New York Mets tomorrow night. 6:10 will be first pitch. Miles Michaels will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got coverage of the first round of the NFL draft for you, and we'll have that coverage starting at 6 o'clock. The Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so you guys have had some questions about the Cardinals front office, I think it's fair to say, and that's putting it lightly, in recent years. And sometimes you hear from the national media, well, you guys are just a little spoiled. You should live with what you got because it's been pretty good since 2007. Well, when you get a report card like this from The Athletic, it's interesting to see Major League Baseball's perspective on your front office, because there was a piece yesterday, Alex, that came out with 40 different Major League Baseball executives polled on who they believe is the best current front office in Major League Baseball. The following teams received at least one vote in that report card: the Dodgers, the Rays, the Braves, the Guardians, the Orioles, the Brewers, the Diamondbacks, the Rangers, Twins, Yankees, Phillies, Mariners, Astros, Tigers, Mets, and Reds. The Cardinals did not receive a single vote in regards to who the top front offices are in Major League Baseball. Alex, T-Bone, what do you make of that?
That people around Major League Baseball see it the way that Cardinals fans are seeing it, to where there is no trust in this front office of finding a way to get this team back into relevance. And I if you did that same poll, let's say 2018, I think you'd have people giving votes to the Cardinals. I think once 2019, the last time they were in the playoffs, happened, and then COVID impacted the team, I don't know in those 5 years if people still have faith in the Cardinals team. I think you saw it go south fast. Now they've had a couple of good drafts, including the one where they got Walker and Masyn Winn, and you're starting to see some of the benefits from that. But in that same time frame, you're talking about a team that made one big swing, and that was Nolan Arenado, but it was kind of gifted to them. And other than that, it was no real big chances, no real big swings, and they're reliant on their development, and the development has fallen flat, and they've made trades of players that got sent away that have negatively impacted this team. So I think in this last 5-year stretch is when a lot of people, a lot of experts around Major League Baseball look at the Cardinals and say, ooh, they are officially done for.
I think what it shows is that Major League Baseball has passed by the Cardinals in terms of the trends of how to develop pitching, the trends of how to develop hitters in the modern age, drafting, all of that has kind of been at where it used to be of, hey, the Cardinals are the team that you're trying to be. You want to implement the Cardinal way. You want to do what the Cardinals are doing with their pitching development, to all of a sudden everybody caught up and then quickly went flying by the Cardinals. And when there are reports that, like, hey, they still don't have the pitching lab in spring training that came out a couple of years ago, you see how their pitching development has stalled. You've seen their kind of misses in free agency where they've had a lot of big deals that have not worked out in the recent years. It's not surprising to me that the Cardinals front office didn't receive a vote. And I think it's more so, there are going to be free agent misses. There are going to be some small deals that end up working out that are great moves. I think it all comes to their pitching development. I think that how baseball has quickly passed them and really left them in the dust on pitching development is why they did not receive any votes. And I'm not surprised that they didn't receive any votes.
So I do want to provide some context for this, though, because I think sometimes we look at what the Cardinals have done when it comes to developing players, and we're just like, Cardinals stink. Everybody else is really good at this, and the Cardinals are the bad team. The number one team on this list in terms of the best front office in Major League Baseball is the Dodgers. And I think we would all agree, like, they're pretty good at their jobs, right? Dodgers do a pretty good job, fair to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Can I read you the Dodgers' first-round picks since 2016?
Go. Could be stud after stud.
Gavin Lux.
Stud.
Will Smith. Good. Really good pick. That one worked out for him.
Bad contract he got, but whatever.
Jordan Sheffield.
Who?
Gary
Jaron
Sheffield.
Kendall. J.T. Ginn. Cody Hose. Michael Bush. No, not Matt Bush. The one with the sleeve tattoo. That's the pitcher. No,
love that
Michael.
dude.
Bobby Miller. All right, yeah, that one worked out all right. Maddox Bruns and Kendall George. That is every Dodgers first-round pick since 2016. 2 of them have worked out in a meaningful way for them at the big league level. The Rays, good front office, we agree? Known for their draft and develop system, right?
Mostly to develop.
Here's what they've done in the first round since 2017. Brendan McKay, Matthew Liberatore, we're familiar. Greg Jones, Nick Bitsko,
Stud.
Carson Williams,
Give it time.
Xavier Isaac, whose Wikipedia page goes to an Argentinian military officer instead of what he's done at the big league level. It's a misprint there.
Good
for him, actually.
Stinks.
Braden Taylor and Adrian Santana.
Boy, they suck at the draft. Somehow
because-
they're really good at picking apart your farm
Yeah, I was
system,
gonna say.
but they can't draft worth a damn.
It's because they find your team and they're like, oh,
All right.
you'll draft them for us.
So the team that's really good at this is the Astros, right? They've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Since 2016, Forrest Whitley, J.B. Bukaskasa,
All right, that's
Seth
made up.
Beer, Corey Lee, Drew Gilbert, Bryce Matthews.
Ugh.
You gotta
Not
give them
so great.
You got to give them time still, man. They're developing.
You want to take that instead of what the Cardinals have done? Okay, yeah, no, we'll do another team. This one's got to be better. Let's go to the Braves. They've certainly knocked it out of the park with the draft, right? Since 2017, Kyle Wright had a good year and just kind of fell apart on him. Carter
One hit
Stewart,
wonder.
Shane Langoliers, Braden Shoemake,
Never heard of
Jared Schuster, Ryan Kusick, Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, Hurston Waldrip. Guys, the draft's really hard. It is so hard to get this right. Like, here's the funny thing. If I read you the list of Cardinals first-round picks since 2017 compared to all of those teams, we would take the Cardinals list.
Read those Braves lists to me one more time.
Kyle Wright,
Okay.
Carter Stewart,
Okay.
Shane Langoliers.
Okay.
He's in another organization now.
Yeah.
Braden Shoemake,
Uh-huh.
Jared Schuster,
Uh-huh.
Ryan Kusick,
Uh-huh.
Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, and then last year's first-round pick.
2 of those 4 guys were what was traded to acquire Matt Olson.
There you go.
That was what my thought process was there, and I'd have to go through a lot of them. How many of those guys that were drafted were traded before they became busts to get stars?
Totally fair.
Because that's where the difference really comes in. Look, Matthew Liberatore was traded for Randy Arozarena before he was a bust.
And I think 2 of those that you read from the Astros were traded for Greinke in Arizona, if I remember correctly.
So that's the difference, and probably why I would imagine that poll went around. It's like, yeah, they might be good at drafting, but the development hits a stall, and they stick with those guys rather than other teams. It hits a stall, and they say, well, bleep this guy. We could get a stud for him right now.
For context, here's what the Cardinals have done since 2016. Delvin Perez, miss. Dylan Carlson, hit and miss, but he'd be like one of the best players on those other lists that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Dakota Hudson, miss, but had a couple of good seasons.
Ace for a little bit there.
Nolan Gorman, we'll see, but it feels like maybe. Zach Thompson, miss. Jordan Walker feels pretty good right now. Michael McGreevy appears to be a miss. Cooper Jerpy, too early. Chase Davis, too early. The Cardinals list is at worst comparable to what we just mentioned with the other teams that are considered to be some of the best front offices in Major League Baseball. And I'm not doing this to sell my soul and sell you on the idea that the Cardinals are better at this than other teams. What I'm saying is we judge the Cardinals really harshly on what they have done in the draft. Probably deservingly so, but the context shows you the draft is just a total crapshoot in Major League Baseball. The NFL draft is tonight, right? 50% of the guys that are drafted in the first round will be busts. 50% of them. Of the 32 picks, 16 will probably not sign a second contract with their current team. Think about that for a second. All of this hope put into this guy, whoever your team selects, that's going to be the thing that saves your team. That's going to be the thing that puts them over the top. Half of you are wrong. Out of the other 16 players, 5 of them will be meaningful contributors in 5 years.
And the Bears could be wrong. Think about that.
Yeah. Caleb Williams might suck.
They may look back and go, damn,
Justin Fields was better.
The most likely outcome for Caleb Williams is that he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
The most likely outcome for Drake May is that he probably 6 years from now whoever selects him is looking for a new quarterback.
Look at hockey drafts, too. You think Edmonton was excited about drafting
hard,
Nail
dude.
Yakupov first overall?
It's so hard. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is like when I see a list like this and I see the teams that are at the top of it, most of them are known for their draft and develop. And then I look at their actual draft and develop. A lot of it's luck, guys. A lot of it is luck. And then they go out and they spend on the right players. That's the thing that the Cardinals have missed on. The Cardinals spend money on the wrong guys a lot of the time. They go to the market, they go to the trades, and they end up getting it wrong. And I think there is such a thing as like front offices that go into slumps and then they like knock it out of the park for a little bit. And this stuff tends to even out, ebb and flow over time. There's only a few teams that just get it right over the long haul. The Dodgers, they could also spend their way out of problems. The Rays, I think the Guardians do this pretty well. I think that's kind of it.
I think they missed the boat, too, and we talk about this a lot. They missed the boat on trading the players at the right time. Trading the players that they have high hopes for at the right time rather than waiting for those players to become what they're thinking they become.
Yeah, and they really fell into that right after the Arozarena deal. And again, like I can understand that to an extent to where it was, holy crap, we really missed on Arozarena. Let's hold on to these guys super tight. We're going to have all these assets, and they'll eventually kind of emerge. And then it doesn't happen, or to your point, you water down a prospect. Like if they decide to move on from Carlson, whether it be at the trade deadline or next offseason, guys are going to get a reliever, a shot-in-the-dark reliever like they did for Tyler O'Neill. The issue I've had with him, and that's why I kind of want to push back against the whole, like, the development thing for the St. Louis Cardinals. Look at, like, if anybody tells you Luke Weaver's a person to pinpoint, don't listen to that. Their issue is they always draft the steady Eddie. Their issue is I don't think they've taken enough swings. They started to do that. Like, Gorman was a big swing. Walker.
Pitching is where they really do what you're talking about.
And like Michael McGreevy, you said to him, like, that's a, like, steady Eddie. Like, if he makes the big leagues, he's always going to be, like the
That's what
Luke
Thompson
Weaver.
was.
Every guy
Thompson.
drafted by the Cardinals that's a pitcher is always a 3 to 5.
I think Jerpy has a little bit of that. Like, sure, he's got a deceptive delivery, but I've never heard one scout say, like, hey, his ceiling is like a number 2 or a number 1. It's always like, yeah, if he makes big leagues, it's like a 4. And that's like the steady Eddie pick. Dakota Hudson, steady Eddie.
Marco Gonzalez,
steady Eddie.
Luke Weaver,
steady Eddie.
Jake Woodford, Dakota Hudson,
all of them
Zach
are 3 to
Thompson,
5.
Michael McGreevy. Even if they work, like the ideal scenario, the 90th percentile outcome is they're a 3-starter for you. The most likely scenario, and this is why the Cardinals do it this way, the most likely outcome for most of these pitchers is that they're back-end starters. They're going to reach the big leagues, they're going to eat innings for you, and they're going to stabilize your rotation. And what they would tell you is that's valuable for us. Because now, instead of having to go pay Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson $25 million combined, we can use that to allocate those resources elsewhere. We can spend money on Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. We can go give that money to those guys instead of paying the back end of our rotation. And now, because those guys have all failed to even be back-end starters, you have to go out to the market and spend on something else. So that's what they would tell you is the reason why that's valuable. What I would say is, yeah, but you're not willing to spend on the front-end starting pitcher.
Exactly.
So it's actually more important for you to spend this draft capital on front-end starters, guys that can reach the big leagues. And if it works, hot damn, we just found our number 1 starter for the next 6 years. That's more valuable at this point for the way that you operate as an organization than finding those back-end starters. So I think they do need to change their draft philosophy, even though 1 out of 6 guys is going to work out that way. Yeah. You just got to keep throwing assets at it. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, you cannot win in the postseason without a great goalie, and it's why, for me, Alex, basically no matter who is offered to the Blues this offseason, I'm not trading Jordan Binnington. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. The Junk Drawer is next. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So there's something that just took place with the NFL draft that I want to get to, and I want to hear what you guys think about this. So Diana Rossini just tweeted out, the Rams, who haven't picked in the first round since 2016, are calling teams to get into the top 10, according to her sources. Then Dan Orlovsky responded, Bowers. And T-Bone's face just dropped, just melted to the ground. And what I wanted to ask you, Alex, do you take more joy in your team having success, or do you take more joy in seeing one of your friends, their teams, failing spectacularly?
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy, because I always enjoy pain for other people. So, yes, I take more joy in that. Like, I get excited when something good happens for my team, but, like, for buddies, like, I got a friend who is a huge Denver Broncos fan, and he was so excited when they traded for Russell Wilson, and I'm like, I can't wait for this to blow up in your face. And watching Russell Wilson just implode for Denver, it was pretty glorious. There were 2 happy moments in my life. One was getting married. 3. Married, kids.
Good save.
Watching Russell Wilson implode.
Yeah, I definitely really enjoy like watching Mizzou suck, and then getting to come in the next day and go, "Hey, BK, guess what? I still won that SEC game."
Been a long year for you, huh? Watching all this success from our teams.
No, your basketball team.
How'd that SEC team look last year?
Dude, I went to that Illinois game, and the guy in front of us was an Illinois fan, and he knew us from the show.
Nice.
Oh,
Good for
it was
him.
a miserable experience.
Yeah, I would have. If I was him, I would have milked the hell out of that game.
And I always enjoyed it. Like where I'm from, it's like split 50-50 Cardinals and Cubs fans because it's not that far from Chicago as well. God, I loved hearing my buddies. Next year's our year. Next year's our year. And then when they won the damn World Series, I had to call in sick the next day. I couldn't go to school.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If I take pride in people's pain,
to Ish. I hate dealing with it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I know you don't.
Yeah, like
you
BK,
don't deal well with it at all.
BK talking about.
He loves giving me crap, but if I give it right back, oh boy.
Yeah.
He gets big mad.
He's typically wrong when he brings it up, though. You know.
Yeah, certain scenarios I can handle it, but other scenarios,
Alex doesn't do well with it with the Blues.
Yeah,
or in general.
Blues probably. No, some scenarios I can handle it. It's just other scenarios that, I take it way too personally.
I generally am able to get over it pretty quickly. It kind of, it is what it is. T-Bone, there are times where he gets to me. I don't know how he does it. There are very few people that bother me when they give me crap. T-Bone has that something about it in his voice.
Probably because I'm right.
One of my other buddies, he just he'll see the scab and he just picks and picks and picks and picks and picks.
Oh yeah,
that gets to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's me with Alex.
When I find a wound, I take advantage of it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line. By the way, a little news to pass along. According to
the Rams traded the next 10 first-round picks for Brock Powers.
According to the St. Louis Blues, Steve Ott has been named an assistant coach for Team Canada.
Oh, good for him.
IIHF.
That's a shot to showcase it to everyone because I wonder if somebody's going to call him about a head coaching job.
What?
It's an opportunity.
Lost power play duties, man.
Yeah, but believe me, somebody would hire Steve Ott as a head coach immediately.
Be an assistant.
Keep an eye on it.
I think he'll be an assistant.
Yeah, it's going to take some time.
He keeps losing his assistant jobs here.
Look, man, he didn't lose it.
And then final thing, if you are somebody that is listening right now and you're wondering, hey, why can't I stream on the app? The app is down today. Go check out YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is the easiest way to listen to the show today. They are working on it. I promise they've been working on it all morning long. Stream is down. Nothing we can do about it. It's above our pay grade, but that's the best way to listen. Or you just, do the old-fashioned thing, go into your car and sit in there for the rest of the day.
You can see our sexy selves, though, up on YouTube.
YouTube.com/101ESPN.
All three of us.
You can also listen to us sing over on YouTube, coming up at 1:15, believe it or not. But coming up next, you just can't win in the NHL in the playoffs without a great goalie, and that's why I am not trading Jordan Binnington, barring one trade that could take place this offseason. We'll tell you what that is next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about Rhino Shield. Plenty of businesses around the area in Missouri and Illinois are making the right decision for their exterior, their roofs, and calling Rhino Shield. Metal Supermarkets in O'Fallon, Illinois just got their exterior and roof wrapped up by Rhino Shield. Darren and his team got the job done just in time for the ribbon cutting ceremony. But if you're driving around different parts of the areas, you'll see all of the different commercial buildings like Chesterfield Amphitheater, Kempen Automotive, over in House Springs, Cottleville Smiles, all have called Rhino Shield because their exterior looked old, worn down, washed away. It needed a new look, and that's where Darren and his team do such a great job. The paint that they use, the product that they use is 8 to 10 times thicker than any other product you're going to buy and think you could save money to do it yourself. Over time, it's going to wash away. Not with Rhino Shield. 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays. They did our home 3 years ago, and it looks brand new 3 years later. They're backed by a 25-year transferable warranty, so give Darren a call today. Get your free estimate and get the exterior of your home, your business fixed with Rhino Shield. 877-25-RHINO. That's 877-25rhino.com.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, Alex, as we've been watching the NHL's postseason, we've been trying to take some of our biggest takeaways from the games that we're monitoring in the postseason that the Blues are not a part of this year, unfortunately, and saying, how does this apply to what the Blues are trying to build right now? And one of the big takeaways is what it is every year, honestly. Hey, you need a goalie. Kind of important this time of the year, and if you don't have one, good luck. Good luck trying to make a big run. Now, if you have the Avs offense from a couple of years ago, where it's just historic levels of greatness, yeah, you can get by with a couple of guys and nobody cares about.
Yeah, they're tied 1-1 in the series, and their goaltender has an .830 save percentage.
If you find somebody that emerges midway through your season and randomly you're like, oh, hey, this guy's on a heater right now, Jordan Binnington, for example, the Penguins for, a decade, you can make that work. It's kind of similar to a closer in Major League Baseball, where the guy that you start out with might not be the one that finishes out the season for you, but you can typically find somebody over the course of the year. But Alex, if you don't have one, you're done. And for that reason, I'm not interested in trading Jordan Binnington, dude. I know they're going through a retool, and it might be a couple of years before they're a legitimate contender. But on the off chance that it comes together quicker than expected, kind of similar to what Vancouver had happened to them, where it was like, oh, damn, okay, yeah, this team's really good, really fast, and we're a contender now with the right coach in place. I have no interest in trading Jordan Binnington. You said during a break a little while ago, you mentioned a couple of players. Would you trade Jordan Binnington for player X, Y, or Z? You mentioned Mitch Marner. I'm not doing that. Then you said, hey, what about Leon Draisaitl? If Draisaitl asks out of Edmonton, he's got 1 year left on his deal, would you trade him for Draisaitl? And I said, okay.
now we're cooking.
I'm willing to think about it a little bit more. That's what it would take, though.
Yeah.
For me to trade Jordan Binnington, I need like a legit superstar coming in return. And the truth is the other team's probably not going to be willing to do that. Like, I need a Matthew Tkachuk. I need a Leon Draisaitl. I need a superstar. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm watching these playoffs right now, and this is why, and people thought I was crazy, but I really believed if the Blues would have gotten into the playoffs, they probably would have won a round because they would have had the better goaltender against one of their matchups, i.e. either Dallas or Vancouver, which, by the way, Dallas is trailing 2-0 in their goaltender with an .850 save percentage, and Vancouver just lost their goaltender and lost the game to the Nashville Predators. I look at the teams that I believe to be Stanley Cup contenders. Vegas, I hate saying that, but I have to. I look at Florida. I look at Boston. I look at the Rangers and Carolina. All of those teams are leading in their series. Why? Because their goaltenders have a .920, .955, .913, .905 save percentage. And I've seen T-Bone reference the Winnipeg Jets with Connor Hellebuck. Just gave a goal away the other day. I've watched Andrei Vasilevsky, which is just a wild thing to say, but has turned the puck over that resulted in the Florida Panthers scoring goals. Jake Ottinger has not been a difference maker. At some time, your goaltender has to make a save that you feel like other goaltenders can't make. Last night, Ottinger gives up a slap shot goal by Noah Hannafin. You can't let those goals that go in. I say that as somebody who's never played goalie, but you can't let those go by. And that's why I'm with you. I think because they're calling this a retool, and I'm in minority, I think this can be faster than what people are giving the Blues credit for. But I believe that because you have a goaltender who can steal a game, steal a series. And if you get into the playoffs, you've got the one thing that I would say 50% of the playoff teams right now are wishing that they had, a goaltender who can make a big save in a big game.
Yeah, and I look at it like in baseball, you always look for what the formula is to win the postseason. And I know it's not like one position, it's one group. It's, do you have pitching that's got swing and miss and that can just be lights out? And if you don't have that, that's like not having a goalie in the NHL. Like I referenced the 2021 Cardinals. Man, that team was fun when they went on a 17-game winning streak. Man, their rotation in that playoff series was, if they got past the Dodgers, was going to be like Wainwright, Lester, J. Happ, and like Miles Michaelis. That's just not a good enough rotation. It's why I don't buy into what they are this year, that they may be good in the regular season, but they're going to do nothing in the playoffs because they don't have a awesome rotation that they can rely upon. That's what you need in the NHL, because you're right. You can't allow those backbreaking goals that we've seen in the playoffs so far. And there are times where your team loses momentum. You need the goalie to stand on his head to buy time, just like a defense in football buys time for the offense to kind of figure things out. That's what made the Chiefs so electric this year, was their defense could play legitimate, stop football, stop whoever they were playing, force some turnovers, and give Mahomes time to figure out what the defense was doing on the other side. That's what an NHL goalie does, and that's why the Blues, when they had Pinner go on that cup run, look at Game 7. He had to stand on his head in the first 10 minutes of 2019. He does it. Blues buys time. Blues end up winning the Stanley Cup because of it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. This one comes from the 618. Guys, I love Binnington, and you would easily trade him for Mitch Marner with zero questions asked. If you were just telling me, like, no cap considerations, would you trade player X for player Y, Binnington for Mitch Marner? The answer is probably yes, especially given the context of the Blues roster with Hofer in place. And you hope that he just becomes a really good goalie, and maybe Zarenko can be a number 2 goalie for you next year. The reason why I'm not sure it's a resounding yes, though, for the Blues is because of the cap considerations. Yeah. Mitch Marner's already at $11 million in terms of his cap hit for next year, and that's the final year of his deal. You're basically locking yourself into Mitch Marner at like 12, maybe 13 mil on an 8-year extension. He's what, going to be 28, 29, or 29, 30 years old at the start of it?
Yeah, 20, because he's going to be 27 next year. So, yeah, 28 at the start of his new contract.
So he'll be 36 at the end of that deal. So it's kind of similar to what you did with Braden Shin in terms of the long-term extension, but at $13 million per year with a no-move clause, by the way, because he already has one for the final 2 years of this deal. I don't know that that's as easy of a, like, write it in pen, definitely want to do that as people maybe would make it out to be.
I'm with you. Like,
because of the cap.
Yeah, because of the cap. And I mean, you have to be talking about, like, you can't one for one it. Like, you'd have to be talking about shipping like a Kyrou and a Binnington out to do that. And I can understand the sentiment. Like, I would listen to it, and I love Binnington, but you know you have Hofer, and Hofer's looked good for you. But, man, the more I think about it, as much as I would love a Mitch Marner, I mean, we're seeing people complain right now in Toronto that he's not a difference maker when they absolutely need him to. And although he's had close to a 100-point season 3 separate times in his career, I know for a fact Jordan Binnington can take a really bad team and make them a near playoff caliber team. And unless I'm getting a player that is going to significantly make your team better, and I think Mitch Marner is, but man, a winger is so different than a centerman in terms of the roles that they take on the ice. I think I would lean more towards goaltender.
I think I would as well. I think when you look at that, it is just one of those positions that there is stopgaps that can happen, but they fluctuate so much to where you have to have somebody that you can just say lock down once you get to the playoffs. Because, again, I think Benner's going to be a kind of fluctuate regular season guy. But once you get to the playoffs, can you rely upon him? You know, we've seen it. Forwards, like, they're going to do their job. You know, a 30-goal scorer is going to be a guy that's going to lead you in the playoffs. When we get to see goaltenders, you can see guys that are Vezina caliber goaltenders in the regular season totally ish the bed once they get to the playoffs.
Connor Hellebuck.
And that's what you can't win a cup without that. I know like Colorado did it, and I know Vegas kind of did the rotating cast, but it's hard to look back over the last 20 years and say they didn't have a guy that could perform in the playoffs in between the pipes to go on to win the cup.
I wouldn't do it because I want to give my best chance at a ceiling for my roster. And I don't think, given what you have available to you right now, a winger is the way to do that. I think keeping the goalie in place. Now, if you told me I could get like an Alex Pietrangelo and I have that number 1 defenseman in place once again,
but Alex Pietrangelo
on the
27 years old.
Exactly. Maybe now we're talking a little bit because that guy's so freaking hard to find. But a winger, I just don't know that that's going to be the thing.
I think when you're trading a Jordan Binnington, and I mean, you're going to see this offseason if Nashville decides to trade Eno Sarris, if Calgary trades Jacob Markstrom. If you're trading that elite of a goaltender, you have to be getting an elite player in return. And I'm not saying Marner's not an elite player because he is, but I think if you're getting a winger, it's got to be an Austin Matthews type who's scoring 50, 60, 70 goals. If it's not, I think you'd rather trade it for an elite centerman or an elite defenseman because they are so much more impactful to a 60-minute game than a winger is for a 60-minute game.
Somebody in the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the place to go, by the way. BK is all about the alternative scenarios that could take place this offseason. Yeah, I want to explore, like, if the Blues go the route of what Alex is talking about, where they do, Alex, we've talked about this in the past, the fork in the road for the two of us in terms of how we view next season is what they're going to do this offseason. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to do much. You think they're going to be potentially pretty active. And if they go that route, what does it look like? What would they be talking about in the room right now if that's what they decide to do? And something that has to at least be discussed is, hey, what do we do with Binnington? Is he a franchise player, or is there stuff out there that could be of interest to the Blues because of his age? And for me, my answer is that no, I'm keeping him around. I'm looking at the playoffs right now and thinking to myself, I want that guy in place. He needs to be here. If there's somebody that I'm thinking about, like if somebody else views Hofer as a legit number 1 goalie right now, that's the guy I would at least consider moving on from. Yeah. I'm not moving Jordan Binnington.
And the other thing, too, with like
unless the Edmonton Oilers want to trade Leon Draisaitl, in which case, let's talk.
Very possible. Or McDavid, one of those two. We'll take one of those two guys.
What do you if the Blue... This isn't going to happen.
Put it on the front end. Put it on the front end.
If Edmonton called the Blues because Draisaitl just decided, I want to play in St. Louis...
Hey, his agent's Mike Liut, guys, so you don't think he's selling him on the idea of the St. Louis Blues?
Not happening.
Reckless speculation.
This is like 2 minutes because the Cardinals aren't playing today, so we've got a couple of minutes here. If they called the Blues, what do you think the Blues' best package would be?
Vladimir Tarasenko, Torrey Krug, and a 3rd-round pick.
I mean.
Oh, okay. I would say Jordan Kyrou is the first guy that they put on the table. Probably Joel Hofer.
Who do you think holds more value in a trade, Binnington or Hofer?
I would say Hofer because he's younger and he's cheaper.
That's what I would say.
And he looks like a guy who, at least if I'm a team that feels like I'm going to be competing in the next year or two, I feel like I can use, like if I'm Edmonton, I'm thinking, all right, well, I've got Skinner, and I know Skinner's not a playoff performer, but I can do 50-50 with him, and Joel Hofer could get to that level. So I think he would hold more value in a trade, and I think if they're calling about that, you're probably also including like a Pavel Buchnevich or a Jake Neighbors for Leon Draisaitl. Like they want NHL players. So it would probably be, if I'm Edmonton, I want Kyrou, I want Neighbors, I want Joel Hofer, and I want 2 of your first-round picks.
Sounds about.
And honestly, I would probably do that. I would totally do that.
Say, I think I would do it as well. I think you wouldn't be turning to Tsarenko then as the backup goalie. I think you probably just go out and sign somebody to be the stopgap guy.
You'd sign a backup.
Now, what if they said, because who was it you included? You said
Neighbors, Kyrou, Joel Hofer, and first-round picks.
Yeah, that's actually probably what they would want. Yeah. I was thinking like maybe they would want a centerman that's close, so I was thinking Dvorsky.
Yeah, but see, if you're
maybe
them,
they take a prospect.
If you're them, you don't need prospects. You need guys that can win right now because you're making that trade because he's not going to re-sign, and we couldn't get past the first round.
Yeah.
That's why I don't even know if they'd want Kyrou. They probably would want like a Robert Thomas.
No.
I mean,
maybe.
sentiment for sentiment, am I right?
I want to build up the middle. Like that's the thing. If I'm doing if I'm making this kind of a move, Dvorsky is now on the wing next year to start out the season with Leon Draisaitl. Like you're playing with Leon Draisaitl, and we're going to develop you that way.
Yeah.
So you have.
Honestly, they would probably ask for Colton Parayko
So
too.
Booch is still here in your scenario?
Yeah, in this scenario, Booch would still be here.
So you've got Booch, Thomas, Shin, Saw, Dvorsky, and Draisaitl as your top six. Snuggerud by the end of the year.
And
Bolduc and Hayes.
I'm sure I really like this top six.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounded kind of crappy to me right now.
You have Leon freaking Draisaitl. You figure it out.
Yeah, but man, they have Leon freaking Draisaitl and Connor freaking McDavid.
Also,
Robert
you don't
Thomas.
have Jordan Bennington.
No, you don't have Benning.
No, you have. You're good. We're good, boys. We got the goalie. Believe it or not, is next.
Been picking up better vibes today, guys. Felt like a believe it or not kind of day.
Cardinals aren't playing. It makes sense. We're
We've
in
been
better
wheeling
mood.
and dealing.
They won.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line
True story,
for
real quick.
Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, after
No, shut up, T-Bone.
the next Mets series, so not the one that's coming up, the next Mets series, the Cardinals will be at least 3 games above 500.
What?
Oh, so they go against the Mets, the White
They've got
Sox.
12 games between now and the end of the next Mets series.
That means you'd have to win 7 of the next 12, if my math is correct. 3 games above 500, you said?
they'd
4
have
games?
to win 8, more than that. Yeah, they would go 8 and 4. That would be good enough.
Yeah, I'm not believing that. Come on now, man.
8 out of the next 12 against the Mets, Tigers, and White Sox.
It means you got to sweep one of the series, and this team does not sweep
Chicago.
series. Yeah, okay. Just like Oakland.
Believe it or not, T-Bone.
Nah, no. No. I think they're losing 2 or 3 to either Detroit or the Mets. Because they're playing good baseball, and Cardinals can't hit. They're seeing, what'd you call it earlier? BB gun bullets or something like
Grease
that.
BBs. That's a. I will give credit where it is due. That is a Jamie Riversism.
Yeah, well,
How do you
Riverism's
grease
right,
BBs?
and they're not going to be able to take 2 or 3 from the Mets or the Tigers if they're seeing those.
They're going to go to the White Sox, and I was going to be like, oh, we got an easy sweep here. So let's get Crawford in. Let's get Jose Fermin in.
By the way, my
Yes.
math was a little off. They need to go 9 and 3.
I was going to say, there's no way 8 and 4 works
9 and
either.
3 would.
Aren't they 4 games below 500 or 3?
3.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, 9 and 12. Yeah,
They
that's
need to go
real.
9
That means
and
2
3 in their
sweeps.
next 12 games, and I think they will do it.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
I
You do
genuinely
not believe that.
I'm serious. I think that they're going to get this thing figured out.
Okay.
Why you always
try.
lie?
You lie. You lie.
Well, I mean,
you
one of those
lie.
series is against the worst team in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, well, the second worst, you took 2 of 3.
The Mets and the Tigers are average baseball teams, and you've been taking 2 out of 3 regularly against average baseball teams.
Mets
So
have
you
won
sweep-
7 of their last 3. Or 7 of their last 10. That's totally bad math. 7 of
You're
3.
going to sweep the White Sox. There's 3, and then you win 2 out of 3 against all the other teams. You're good to go.
That's only 7. Oh, that's 9. Way to go, man. That's not happening. Good try. Believe it or not, guys, there will be a new name in the top line next season for the Blues.
Not. Like somebody not currently on the roster?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say not. I don't think they're making significant changes to the forward group, so that means I don't see a new player inserting on a wing on the top line. So I'm going to say not believe it.
So in a matter of 3 minutes, all of our Leon Draisaitl hopes are dead, huh?
No, I mean, they were never alive.
Well, what are you talking about, man? They're absolutely alive.
T-Bone, what do you got for us?
Guys, believe it or not, the real fun in the NFL draft tonight starts with that number 5 pick with the LA Chargers.
Not. I think it starts at 3.
Yep.
Oh.
I think that somebody's making a trade at 3.
I just don't know what's going to happen with New England. Like, I think that
Well, they don't know who's running the team.
Kraft is
correct.
running it right now, so we know what's going to happen.
I could see them going J.J. McCarthy. I could see them going Drake May. I could see them trading out of the pick. I think one of those 3 things is happening, but if I think any of those 3 things could happen there, I think a quarterback is going number 3 overall. And I think it will either be J.J. McCarthy or Drake May, most likely Drake May. The fact that I don't know right now means that that's where the draft really starts.
Yep. I'm with you.
I'm actually believing it because I think they're taking Drake May at 3. I think they're set on May. I think they've determined that. I think all the noise surrounding them is to try and get the Godfather offer. And I don't think you see it. And I think Arizona holds on 4. And then I think when you get to 5, that's when Jim Harbaugh is going to be licking his chops, ready to see what pick ends up coming his way and what they're going to be able to get. Because I don't see them holding on to 5.
Believe it or not, Harbaugh is going to be making the selections in his RV tonight.
I'll believe it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I
By the
hope
way,
so.
there's a 100% chance Harbaugh is drafting somebody that just like plays with physicality. Like them drafting a wide receiver, there is no chance. They want to throw the ball like 15 times a game.
Unless they
J.J. McCarthy is the biggest knock against him right now. Is that the guy that Jim Harbaugh said he's the best quarterback to ever come through Michigan, which included Tom Brady, by the way. He said, I want to throw the ball as few times as humanly possible with that guy as my quarterback. And we think he's going to draft a wide receiver in the first round? Get out of here.
Yeah, no, he's
Chargers are drafting a tackle.
He's going to draft a Michigan guy.
The over-under is set at like 3.5 Michigan players for the Chargers to draft this year.
Wow.
By the end of the draft.
Dude, after the first round, I would say it's all going to be Michigan guys.
I think they're going to draft Blake Corum. I think he's going to be a Charger.
I would take the over on that one.
3.5 Michigan guys.
I mean, it's
Charger.
That's a ton.
Yeah, I'm going under.
I would take the over
as well.
Corum makes a ton of sense for the Chargers. Like that, I can actually see happening.
You watch.
All right, guys, believe it or not, 314-399-96.
The draft board just says Michigan on it.
46. Michigan or bust. From the 636, guys, believe it or not, Jordan Walker will be called back up by the middle of May.
I'll believe this because I think the Cardinals are going to continue to struggle, and then if he's hitting, they're going to say, "Oh, we need him up here now so we can get this right."
I think June 1st.
As I say, I'm not going to believe it. I think it's going to be until June till you see him. I think he's going to be down there because he's not even in the lineup today. It's going to take like 3 days.
All he said yesterday that they're going to take 2 or 3 days before he gets into the lineup there. They want to work on some stuff behind the scenes first.
And like to really see improvement, I think you got to give him a month to see how he looks. And then from there, we can have the conversation. So I would say not. I think it's kind of what PK said, around June is when they'll do it.
Believe it or not, the Blues in Ottawa will make a blockbuster deal this offseason that shakes up both rosters.
I believe it.
You do?
Yep. I think there's a couple teams to keep an eye on with the Blues via trade. I think Ottawa's one of them. I think Carolina is going to be the other. And I would also put Philadelphia into this conversation. I think those are 3 teams that are going to look to shake it up. And I think if the Blues are going to be listening to teams wanting to shake it up, they'll be ready to do the same thing.
So what do you send? If you want Chychrun and either Tkachuk or Pinto, what do you send? You're sending Kyrou. That's the starting point.
You're sending Kyrou, Booch.
I don't think that would be somebody they'd be interested in. He's not
I do.
Sign him.
No, I know, but I think it would give them hope that you might be able to win with them.
Into the same situation that you were in with Chychrun that you're trying to get out of. I don't think that Booch would be somebody of interest.
I think they'd like him because they feel like if we get the right coach, if we get the right players, maybe he'd be interested in staying because they want veteran guys that can help them win now. And if you're trading away a Tkachuk and you're trading away a Chychrun, I don't think they trade Pinto. It sounds like they want to keep Pinto. You're going to want guys who fill that void. I think they'd be interested in it because it makes them better now. And then
I would say there's no chance of that happening.
I don't think they want defensemen. I would say you're probably tossing in Hofer into this conversation, and then you're talking draft picks. Probably this year's first round.
I'm not going to believe it because the sense I got from Army's end-of-season presser, and look, I was driving to Nashville when that happened, so you guys have a better sense of this. I got the sense he still likes what he has in Kyrou, and he really wants to lock up Buchnevich. So I think you have to include Kyrou in the Ottawa deal to get something significant.
I think he likes Kyrou right now. I think if a team comes calling and they offer up somebody like a Brady Tkachuk, I think your opinions can change on it pretty quickly because you know what the results have been these last couple of years.
Kyrou, Hofer, a first-round pick, and man, it's hard to find that fourth piece.
You're talking a prospect that's not Snuggerud or Dvorsky.
But who is that?
Yeah, I don't really have a Lindstein.
Stenberg, Lindstein. I think because you're throwing in Kyrou and Hofer in a first, it's not going to be a big-named prospect. Maybe Dean, maybe a Bolduc.
Yeah, that feels like it's kind of what you're looking at there.
Yeah. And that's in a scenario where you're getting Chychrun and Tkachuk.
Yeah.
I would do it, yeah. And then you're probably maybe tossing in one of your defensemen because, or you're making a 3-team trade where another team takes on a defenseman. But yeah, I would do that.
Kevin Hayes, he's going there too. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, what's the lesson to be learned from Jordan Walker's progression through the minors? Or is there one to be learned from this? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals beat the Diamondbacks yesterday 5-1 as they take 2 of 3 from Arizona. They are off today as they travel out to New York, where they'll start a 3-game set at the Mets tomorrow night. 6:10 first pitch. Miles Michaels will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got the first round of the NFL Draft for you with coverage starting at 6 o'clock. The Sports Update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, an independent Mercedes heating and air conditioning dealer.
Is there a lesson to be learned from all of this with Jordan Walker? Or is it just that sometimes development isn't linear and a guy gets off to a slow start, gets hot again, next year comes back, another slow start, and will probably get back on track? That's the question that I want to ask of Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, what do you learn from this, if anything? Like, not just with Jordan Walker, but how can they apply this to future top prospects within the organization, whether that's Chase Davis, the guy that they drafted this year in the top 10? What can we learn from the way that the Cardinals handle Jordan Walker's development within the system, and how do you apply it in the future?
I don't know if I'd take anything away from what's gone wrong. Like, I know a lot of people will jump in and say, well, you shouldn't have put him at the major leagues so fast. You should have played it out a little bit longer like you did with Masyn Winn. I mean, like we just talked about with Masyn Winn in the last hour, Masyn Winn earned his opportunity to be on the team. It's just they felt like they wanted to let it develop. Jordan Walker earned his opportunity to be on the team last year through spring training, and that's why he got that opportunity. I don't really feel like the Cardinals did anything wrong with Jordan Walker. I mean, I guess if you want to go down the path of like, oh, well, their hitting coach isn't striking with this guy, apparently it's not working out. They're not getting the message. They need to get a different hitting coach. I just don't know the impact of a hitting coach for a player. I think they've done everything right. This is just a matter of the player trying to figure it out at the major league level.
Yeah, I think it's development is not linear. I don't think there is a lesson. I don't think they rushed him. I hate that we've seen the whole, oh, they rushed Jordan Walker to the big leagues. He clearly wasn't ready for the big leagues. One, as Alex said, he earned the job out of camp last year. And by the way, they had a crowded logjam in the outfield last year, and they said, this guy's one of the best players we have. We have to bring him with us to camp. I think what has happened is everybody seems to think that, 10 years ago, it was guys progress through the minor leagues, they go to AAA, that's the final seasoning, and boom, you're up at the big league level. Guys, AAA is not what it used to be. It's like the American Hockey League now, to where it is not where the prospects go to groom and become these guys right before they get to the big leagues where they can blossom. No, AA is that spot now. We're the top Cardinals pitching prospects. They're in AA right now. Jordan Walker skipping AAA. Could he have used a little seasoning? Maybe. But I don't think it's the thing that like, oh, he didn't go to AAA, he can't be a big leaguer now. I don't think that's the case. AAA is where all the washed-up guys go to play right now. And I think it's a good idea to send him down now because he needs to try and refine his swing, find some confidence, get away from the pressure cooker. But I don't think he was rushed. I don't think it was he had to go to AAA before he ever made an appearance with the St. Louis Cardinals. I think he was ready. The Cardinals thought he was ready. He got off to a 12-game hitting streak, and I thought it was a mistake they sent him down last year. I just don't buy this notion of he had to go to AAA first. I think it was, if you're ready to play at the big league level, we're going to bring you to the big league level, and we're going to find out how ready you really are. Look at the Baltimore Orioles, for example. They're sending him to AAA Jackson Holiday. That was not he needed seasoning. That was service manipulation. Let's call it what it is. Yep. And he's clearly outmatched at the big league level, and he's probably going to have to go back down to work on things. I just hate the notion that he was rushed and he had to go to AAA. Because, guys, I went to a AAA game while I was in Nashville last weekend. That's a whole bunch of scrubs that was playing in that AAA game.
I think one of my biggest takeaways, I've got a couple of them. One, move guys to their future positions quicker.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you had Jordan Walker in your system and he was a third baseman, he was never playing third base for the St. Louis Cardinals. Just wasn't. It was never going to happen because even if Nolan Arenado opted out, which wasn't happening, Nolan Gorman was going to play third base for you at the big league level. Walker was always going to be an outfielder. And the fact that they waited so long to move him to the outfield caused a year of learning on the job at the big league level in the outfield, which personally, I believe, put his offensive development a little bit behind. There's only so much time that you have to be able to practice at the big league level. It's pregame stuff, right? And T-Bone, we were out there. We saw it. He was working his ass off in the outfield, and you've seen the results. He's a good outfielder this year, man. He's an above-average major league outfielder right now defensively. There's still some holes in his game, no doubt about it. But he's pretty good out there. That's not why he's getting sent down. So the work paid off. Imagine if he was able to do that work for a year and a half down in the minors instead of having to do that at the big league level. Maybe last year he gets a little bit more work in the cage and you're able to focus more on his swing as opposed to what's happening defensively with him, just to be able to get him into the lineup on a day in, day out basis. They were terrified of that guy in the outfield, and they should have been. So that's one thing. Move the guys to their future positions earlier, especially when you are blocked at that spot at the minor league level and you know they're not going to play there in the future. So that'd be one. Another, dude, it is so hard to develop at this level. It's so hard to do. And it's necessary, but it's difficult. And it will probably require guys to go up and down. That's just the honest to God truth. Like we're going to see this with another prospect in the future, guys. And we can't freak out about it then the way that we probably shouldn't be right now. Jordan Walker is still 21 years old. It's his age 22 season because he's going to turn 22 here in the next week or so. Or, excuse me, in the next month. What do you want from this guy? He's 21, man. And I know we're all really excited about it. We feel like it should be ready to go now. The Cardinals needed him to be ready to go now. Nolan Arenado said the other day, like, this is a guy that we need in order to reach our ceiling. He's right. He's 100% correct. But it's not his fault that the progress isn't coming as quickly as possible. Think about whatever your job is right now. Think about where you were at in your life, away from whatever your job is. Think about where you were at in your life when you were 21 years old. And now imagine what you were like 3-4 years from then, just in terms of your mental development. Things change for you, man. Things start to click in place. Like you start to understand more about your surroundings. And that stuff applies to whatever your job is as well. You just start like maturing a little bit. And I'm not saying Jordan Walker's immature for his age. Holy crap, is he a mature individual? But it's going to take some time. So I think that's the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that like what we should learn from this process with Jordan Walker, even when you have a legit top prospect in Major League Baseball, it is going to take time for them to reach their ceiling, probably 3 years. So don't expect them year one to be a finished product. I think that's probably, for us on the outside looking in, and for the Cardinals, what they should probably learn from this.
That's real quick. That's why I always feel like it's important to make sure your roster is at a competitive place to where you don't have to rely on those guys to make that difference. And I know the Cardinals felt like they had it this season, but it was pretty obvious once the season started. It's like, man, we're going to have every single person clicking for this offense to work because of so many guys in slumps, whether it was age or that they weren't ready for the opportunity. When you see the successful teams, they always got guys that we know we're going to be competitive with these guys, and then we can implement other players into the roster. And I know that's a very difficult thing to do, but that's when the pressure cooker turns on for these younger players, is when you need them to be at their best the moment they step onto the major league field.
And that's the other thing. When you're contending or trying to contend, it's even harder to develop at the major league level, because every day you're forced into the decision of, is it better for us to continue going with the guy that's struggling right now, that's young, or is it better for us to send that guy down so we can get somebody that right now as of today, Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar give the Cardinals a better chance to win every day than Jordan Walker does. Late game situations, righty on the mound, Alec Burleson gave them a better shot in that situation right now to be able to get that hit. That's a decision that the manager has to make. And if you were in a situation, or if you're the Pirates, you just let Jordan Walker keep taking his lumps. If you're the Reds, let Jordan Walker take his lumps. Here in St. Louis, that doesn't play though. And that's the other thing to take from this, is it's just really hard when you're annually trying to contend to be able to develop those players, something that the Blues have run into at times in the past as well. Coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
And for those of you that are back on the app, it is up and running.
Woo!
In the future, if you have any issues with the app, make sure you check out the YouTube page. That's always available for you. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. If you ever have any issues on the app, check YouTube. That is the place where you can go. We are always up streaming live over there as well. All right, we'll finish the show today with the NFL draft, which is taking place tonight, Alex. It feels like everybody is trading up. Yes. Every report that is coming out right now basically indicates chaos will ensue.
None of it's going to happen.
Quarterbacks going 1 through 4. The Giants want to trade up. The Broncos want to trade up. The Vikings want to trade up. Everybody's trying to get up to get their quarterback. Oh, and by the way, the Rams want to get up as well. Nobody knows why. Do you think we're going to see chaos, or do you think this is going to be a letdown relative to expectations, Alex?
No, I actually believe we're going to see chaos because I think with the quarterbacks that are in this first round, I think teams are desperate. And, I mean, we're talking about Minnesota. We're talking about Denver. I think you've got some real desperate teams that are going to trade more than what they should trade to get in. And I think you're going to see the downfall of one team that makes a trade later on tonight, meaning like Minnesota makes a trade for J.J. McCarthy. That is going to fall apart fast. Giants make a trade to move up to get Drake May or McCarthy. That is going to fall apart very, very fast.
Yeah, I think we're seeing at least 2 trade-ups into the top 10, and one of them is for a quarterback. Because I do actually think that the Rams, man, the way they operate, I love it. They're definitely moving into the top 10 tonight. But I think you're only going to see one move up, and I don't think the Giants are going to be able to wow New England to get to 3. I think it comes in at 4. Who's going to be able to move into 4 or move into 5 to try and get 4 or 5, one of those two. One of those spots, somebody's going to get desperate and trade a haul to go get whoever it is that they view as the quarterback, whether that's J.J. McCarthy or if Drake May ends up being the guy that falls. That's where Arizona might go, oh, man, we could really get some offers if New England surprises us.
I think Alex had it right earlier. I think eventually, I don't know, man. I'm of two minds on this. I think if somebody gets crazy, it's Minnesota. Minnesota's the one that'll be desperate. I could totally see New England saying, you know what, Bob Kraft told us that we have to take a quarterback. Our quarterback is Drake May. We're going to take Drake May at 3. And then if that happens, I think Arizona stays put. They take Marvin Harrison Jr. And then 5 with the Chargers is where you see something happen. And they end up moving down, and J.J. McCarthy goes 5 overall.
That's where I think Minnesota and Denver battle it out.
I do think you'll see 4 of the first 6 picks, though, as quarterbacks, which is something I don't know that we've ever seen happen before. That would be very, very rare to see that many quarterbacks going that high.
5 in the top 15.
Yeah. I think Penix is one of the top 15 as well.
That's wild.
The story of the night tonight is I think the fewest defensive players we've ever seen in an NFL draft is like 12 in the first round. I think you're going to see less than that tonight. I think it's going to be about quarterbacks, tackles, wide receivers. You're going to see a ton of picks with those 3 positions. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to discussing that with you guys tomorrow. We will be joined by Chris Kerber as well. Plenty to get into tomorrow for Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Fastlane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.